Here we go.
Where we
We're
go.
back. We're back. We're back.
After a two-week break, back for another Blether tonight with two guests, which we're really excited about. What I love about tonight's guests are that they are not brand owned, not owned, but specific. So it's going to be a real nice, refreshing, honest. Not that other guests aren't honest, but not led by a brand in particular, I suppose, is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, it feels weird being back after 2 weeks.
Well, it's such a long time. Obviously, we had the Academy 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
Bloody hell! Yeah. Yes, was the longest week ever. But brilliant. And then
not long enough.
It was. Yeah. It was. I think I slept for 3 days after it.
and just to reiterate, that wasn't alcohol induced.
No, that was driving
most of the time.
That was pure and utter fatigue.
Just say good evening to Phil. Phil Dixon is
first one. Well done, Phil. I'm not sure if David's maybe back. David was in Malaga, so I think
yeah, he might be jet lagged tonight, so I'm not sure if he'll be on.
And I did notice it on your advert. You put Blether.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that was maybe a reference to David, who likes to sit and watch. Well, not that we need that image, but likes to have a bath after work and sit in the bath with a dram and listen to the Blether. So maybe it's a blather that he actually has.
But I think we'll have to ask the ladies about that, because I'm just sharing that advert. That wasn't my own. That's maybe a translation. So tonight, what are you drinking before we bring the girls in?
One of our guests tonight is a huge fan of the GlenDronach, so I thought I would pour myself a wee GlenDronach, and I'm sure I'll manage to share a wee drop of this as well. We can get one sent down. Good evening, Gary, Mr. Dunsire. Good to have you along, sir.
I'm going to pour this one just now. Actually, I've got the.
Well, you've got GlenDronach, which are very old school. Showing off.
Old school. It was just sitting on the shelf there, and because you said that, I thought, well, why not?
You're going to pour one as well. So we've got Gary Dunsire from the East City Whisky Club joined us tonight, and I was just thinking the first time I met Tori was actually, I think, probably my very first East City tasting over a year ago as well, which I think was maybe Glencadam. Another fantastic dram. So good evening, Gary. Good to be along. Nice to see you, Tobias.
Nice, good to see you. Tobias, you have to let us know what you got booked in for Campbelltown Festival, because I know you were keen on going for that. So I didn't book anything, but I wonder if it's worth going down for a long weekend and hanging around Campbelltown for a bit. There's so much going on for the festival that it'd be good to go down.
Surely we need to do a bit of shop research, maybe.
Maybe. We can put it. We're in that lucky position. We can put a lot of that down to research and expenses. If Annette lets me spend the money on there.
Well, absolutely.
Right. So I suppose you're not here to listen to me and Russell Blether all night. We have some great guests on. Just say good evening to Michael. Return after running about Scotland for the last week. Yes, Michael, I've been pretty much running around Scotland. The last week I was on holiday. We went to the West Coast, bit of a busman's trip around Torvig and Massey, which was great. That might come up tonight. You can see I'm well suntan from the days in the Scottish West Coast. It was actually really good weather, so can't complain. Let's bring the girls in, and while we're doing that, good evening, Haley, and good evening, Tori. And it worked first time.
There we go.
Hi.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
How are we both?
Good evening. I'm good, thank you. Very well.
Good.
I feel like
thank you for the introduction, Mike.
I feel like I should have poured a GlenDronach, seeing as you guys have got out one of my favourites, but I've gone with a Glen Grant this evening.
Fantastic.
Glen Grant's a really nice dram, actually.
Yep.
It's certainly a it was. I mean, we don't get it in much now, to be honest, at the shop. But any kind of single cask or things tend to go really well. Just a really nice fruity kind of number, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is the Berry Brothers, so I think this is a 25-year-old. It's a 1998 one. So I thought I'd go a bit posh this evening and pull out some of the good stuff.
Well, we're flattered. And
Big
Hayley,
guns.
what have you got in the glass tonight?
I haven't poured it yet, but I've just gone for the Deanston 18 because I'm having to drink my bottles dry. So I thought I'd pick up something that I need to drink up. But I haven't had a proper whiskey for nearly a month. So it's a long old haul. I do need a drink this evening.
Wow. Hopefully the chat's not that bad that you're being driven to drink. So we've got Paul Dempsey on. He's watching from, or formerly of Spey Distillery.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoying. Maybe are you just running down your time there, Paul, or are you finished? Let us know. Really excited to see what you've got coming up in the next stage of your career. Jeremy Watt joining us. We've got Kyle Forsthoff saying hello to you, Hayley. He's joined us tonight.
I know who that. He's over on the other side of the pond. I met him in Edinburgh, actually. That's funny. Hi, Kyle.
Obviously a fan.
Excellent. Good stuff. Good stuff. Brilliant.
We had our first whiskey experience together. Sorry.
No, crack on.
Sorry, my sound's really bad, so I brought in line with you. Me and Carl had one of our first whiskey experiences at the Glenkinchie Distillery back in 2018, because he was a cast member of the Edinburgh Tattoo, and I was looking after them, and we went there and that was my first distillery tour, and it was quite exciting.
Brilliant. Good stuff. I love how, like I saw that you meet somebody, you have a whiskey with them, and they become friends and followers, and it's just one of the many things that we love about whiskey, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how me and Hayley
shared experience with the best ones.
Yeah, so how did you guys meet?
So I started following Hayley when I set up my page a couple of years ago, and she was kind of like a little sort of inspiration for my sort of page and kind of like on my followings that I'd like to sort of aim for, and we got chatting and sort of just became friends through there really, and then I sort of asked her if she wanted to sort of, you know, join me on the sort of open malt night venture, because I really fancied doing something like that, but I was a bit scared of doing it on my own, and Hayley was really interested in that sort of thing as well, and it just sort of came about there really, and now we sort of speak even just off Instagram, and I think we even tried hooking up in London, but we just missed each other by so a few minutes or so, didn't we?
We've never met. Never
Really?
met.
Oh wow.
In real life, yeah. Yeah. No, I've not had the pleasure yet, but you know it's going to be a messy one when we do.
Yeah, it's on the cards, and we're actually going to be meeting up at the Whisky show as well, in end of September, sort of October time.
October. Yeah.
So yeah.
That's good. Great stuff.
Watch this space.
It's funny. Yeah, I was having a chat with Ben Chambers now of Muddy McDavid, just leading up to the academy, and I had to ask him as well. It was like, have we ever met each other in person? And we had, but we're now at that stage where we've met so many new people. It's reminding, you know, have I actually met you yet, or is it still all virtual? So hopefully in the next year or so, all these guys who we've met virtually will become face-to-face friends as well, which would be great.
It's also when you see somebody for the first time. We've got Paul on tonight, who's unfortunately isolating, having been given a gift of an unwelcome gift at the Dutch festival at the weekend. So he's having to isolate just now. But I'd met Paul so many times online, and I had him on tastings, and he popped up to the shop. He was one of the first people that we saw come into the shop, but I never realised how tall he was. And you see people on screen, but when I thought, Jesus Christ, you just don't expect people to be of a certain stature when you meet them in person. But yeah, everybody's sitting down. You think everybody's kind of short and small.
So you've, I mean, Instagram is kind of both of your kind of main channels for reaching out to people. How have you found, or how have you adapted to? I mean, I suppose you guys have been virtual in so many ways anyway with your following. Have you seen that demand for your chats and your online live sessions? Has that grown, or is it kind of stayed the same? How have you felt that the lockdown has affected you guys as influencers?
I think for me, I started my page the 1st of January 2020. So it was pretty much like just a couple of months before we went into lockdown. Yeah. So it was sort of it was just natural for me to be going through that. I wouldn't have seen any differences. I think speaking to people though, when they started doing sort of the virtual tastings, that was a pretty new thing from what I'd gathered, speaking to other people that have been sort of doing Instagram for a while. And I think I really liked the virtual tastings because it gave that freedom for people to still join, but wherever they lived. So it didn't restrict people from actually getting together. I don't know if that differs for you, Hayley, because you've been on a bit longer.
I joined, months before you. I joined Instagram purely because I'd moved to Germany. I was living on my own, had no community, didn't speak the language, and just discovered whiskey. So I joined to learn about whiskey. I wanted to learn about the different company brands and tastings, etc. So I found a community and a friendship that actually probably really was substantial to me and still is. So virtual is really important to me, and I think exactly what Tori said, that virtual gave people the chance to try whiskey confidently, because tastings are incredibly overwhelming. And so for somebody who's new, who's a novice, who doesn't even know how to taste properly, and they're intimidated, paying £60 to go to a venue with people that are, can be quite pretentious or overwhelming, it is a lot of pressure. And I think online enabled them to sit at home, turn the camera off if they wanted to, watch and learn without feeling a pressure to act a certain way. So I think it really opened up a lot of people to enjoying whiskey in the comfort of their home without feeling a pressure of doing it properly. So, and I still believe that it has to carry on. I think there's a real place for it. And we've become reliant on virtuals, but it's nice to have it par and par, because there's definitely a place. But I will say, not all brand managers or ambassadors should be doing them online, because some are awful. And it's an awful thing to say, but they just preach at you. I mean, I'm a teacher, so I know, and they just preach, and you don't have the chance to actually talk and explore and learn a little bit. So the summer, incredible. Yeah, they really opened it up.
I never actually thought about that as well. I mean, we've reached a whole new audience virtually, and people who have then become either customers of the shop or the academy, or what I would now regard as personal friends as well. Never thought about that confidence thing, or that kind of idea of being. We knew the comfort of your own home kind of thing was a big part of it. And a lot of people who join our tastings are still quite local as well, but they're maybe a taxi drive away. So that £30 ticket for the tasting automatically becomes
on top of the ticket as well, of course. And then they want to buy a bottle. So
it's but I never thought of that, just sitting in your own home, being relaxed. And if you don't want that level of interaction, you don't need to. You can sit there and watch it, and have your drams at your own leisure, and maybe do a couple, learn when listening to other people talking about it, you think, oh, well, I am getting that. And I am smelling that, or I am tasting that. And it gives you that confidence to know what you're doing is right or completely wrong. But, there's no focus on it. Yeah. That's a
exactly
great
that. But also,
it
gets your audience is further. A lot of this, a lot of these big Scottish distilleries are suddenly having online virtual tasting in Germany, in France, in Denmark. They were joining local communities of whiskey lovers because I'm a part of a German group. I know there's Netherlands groups. They were joining these groups, and then they were getting tastings further afield. So therefore, they were reaching people that couldn't, wouldn't be coming to Scotland even if there wasn't lockdown. Because obviously it's an expensive trip. So it does reach it further. So now we have that implemented. I'm hoping that will keep people really engaged, especially with a lot of distilleries. And who doesn't want to have a virtual tour of a distillery with a brand ambassador? Marvelous.
Exactly. Yeah. And I suppose the other thing that it gave us insight, and maybe not so much on the tasting side, but certainly through Instagram, through Facebook Live and all this, was access to guys who you wouldn't get access to.
Yeah.
Rachel
Incredible
Barry's,
access.
Billy Walker's, these kind of guys, because they're sitting at home themselves, talking to a computer virtually.
Yeah.
And we've had some great guests on the Blether that.
But even this virtual.
Yeah. We
not
would
met you guys
never
before. Haven't met Tori before. Yeah. Exactly.
I'm sure you will. We've got a question coming in from one of our viewers, Phil Dixon, and directed it. We'll do it one at a time. What was the first dram of whiskey that you enjoyed? So
maybe not the first one you had, the first one you enjoyed.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point, actually.
We'll go with Tori first because you're just on the left-hand side.
I think I absolutely fluked mine. The first dram that I enjoyed, and probably the first dram that I'd actually tasted as well, was when I'd visited a distillery while on holiday in Scotland, and that were Glendronach, funnily enough. And so we had the 12, 15 and 18 in a flight. So my favourite was the Glendronach Allardyce.
Nice.
And also I think I also did a handfill bottle of their manager's cask as well at the time. So I think I struck gold really with trying whiskey. It's
such a great dram. But where do you go from there, though? That is a problem you're faced with. I think.
What a place to start.
I know it took a while.
I'm afraid mine isn't exciting.
And Hayley, how about yourself?
I started much lower. I had more. I had further to go because I started much lower than Tori did. My first whiskey was the Glenfiddich 15-year-old Solera, but I used to drink it with a lot of water. I literally just would start with a tiny dram and fill it with water. And from there, it led on to, I think I had an Oban, but I went to America and had on a trip, and I had a flight of whiskies. And then I fell in love with Jack Daniel's single barrel. And I know you're all going to shoot me because it's not a whiskey. But I was new in the experience, and it was so sweet. And then that's when I started to discover a little bit more bourbon styles, and I kind of discovered my palate. Funnily enough, I recently had it and hated it. So I really know that I've evolved in my flavors. But I think there's a place in these drinks, like 100%. And it was one of my favorites for a long time. But yeah, so that was probably the first one I thought, oh, I can do this neat, and it tastes incredible, and I can get the flavors from it. So sorry.
We all start somewhere. It's a journey for everyone.
Never apologize for what you enjoy.
Here.
Absolutely.
Judging.
My
apologize for what you enjoy ever.
The first whiskey I regularly drank was Jameson, and I drank it with a load of ice. So whenever we went in and out in Aberdeen, which is our local city, we'd end up in a pub called O'Donoghue's, which is an Irish bar. We always said, well, we're going to have to drink the Irish stuff. So it was Guinness and Jamesons, and that's what we drank when we were there. I didn't particularly like the taste, so I loaded it with ice, and it made it much more drinkable. And then moved on. I got a job as a restaurant supervisor in a local hotel. and tried to expand the whiskey collection, and got in touch with Diageo, the classic malt range. Tried the Dalwhinnie, 15-year-old. Tried it neat, and that was my light bulb moment. Was that this, you don't need ice to drink this. This is really good, and that's what opened my door to Scotch. So yeah, we all have a journey, which is, and again, as I said, one of the things we love about whiskey is we've all come to it from different directions.
Absolutely. Yeah, my first whiskey was probably.
Sorry. I love Jameson's.
Yeah. My first whiskey was probably a Bell's or a Grouse, basically because just being in the pub drinking pints. Used to play a lot of darts, and it was always if you won, you stayed on the board, but you won a dram or you won a drink. And I was quite good, so you couldn't take pints off everybody. There was no way to be able to drink all those pints, so I would just take a whiskey and just knock them all back, and I wasn't enjoying it. It was just for getting drunk's sake. And many years later, was part of a football dream team mini league with my friends, and the prize for winning a fantasy football team, the prize for winning the league was a bottle of malt from everybody. And I won it in my second season with the guys. And one of the prizes was a bottle of Tomatin Legacy, among other things that weren't particularly nice. And the Tomatin Legacy just changed my mind altogether. That lovely sponge cake fruitiness that was in there just kind of totally opened my eyes. And then I was fortunate to win it the following year. And my mate bought me a bottle of Glendronach 12. And that was the game changer. That was me totally into wanting to find out more about this. So, yeah, so Glendronach and Tomatin were probably the two that opened my eyes and made me want to Gary saying you can't beat a good grouse. I'm not so sure, Gary. There's a time and a place.
Yeah, like I said, at the end of the night, and I think for a long time, I don't know how you guys felt. A long time, I waited until the end of the night to spend a little bit extra on the good stuff. But I've now completely turned that around. You have the good stuff at the start when your palate's ready for it, and maybe go into the malt of the month or the grouse at the end of the night when
you're drunk.
Palate's shot and you're not really getting the good of it. Yeah. So
I like to get smokier towards the end of the night. I always start off a bit sweeter, and then I get heavier and heavier, and I wake up to smell an ashtray, and I don't smoke.
Yeah. That's the way to do it, though. Absolutely. Yeah.
We all tend to set up our tastings like that, so just smoky. And I've been to tastings where the pinnacle whiskey is at the end, but they've maybe had it after an Islay or a smoky whiskey, and it's for me it's just not the way to do it. I always have the kind of the pinnacle in the middle, so you warm up to it, and then a couple of peaty ones afterwards to show a difference. But I'll always have the peat at the end. You just can't go back from that. Yeah.
Callum, so for any rugby fans, and especially if you're Scottish, so from our point of view, Grand Slams don't come round very often. Callum from Bothies and Bannocks, first time was the Glenmorangie from the Grand Slam, which she wasn't impressed. She was saving it for our next one, but that's never going to happen, Callum.
She'll still be waiting, so
it's never going to happen. Scotland and Grand Slams.
Yeah,
you were as well drinking it, Callum. Well done.
I see we won the first. I think we're just making up cups for us to win now. There's the Scotland Italy trophy. There's a new one that we won.
Is there?
Yeah, I think it's like the wooden spoon kind of thing. I think we get. Kat Housley works at the shop. She also works at Glen Geary with this. Says that Princess Margaret swore by a grouse. So I've got the royal seal of
Princess Margaret swore after she's had a few grouse.
I was going to say she did all kinds of things like Queen do.
That's what. Yeah. So, Kat, Kat, she's very passionate about not only being a woman involved in whiskey, but about promoting women in whiskey, and it's great to have the two of you on. So if you guys are okay about kind of looking at that subject as well, sometimes it could be a bit of a balance in that to bring it up, but I think when you guys on, it's safe ground to get into in terms of getting you guys in front of people talking whiskey. How have you found attitudes changing towards women in whiskey? Are you seeing a distinct difference, or is there still that struggle, certainly in bars and things?
I've seen it.
Go first,
Go on, Hayley. You go and answer this one first.
Oh, well, I think we both had different experiences as well. Like we both have episodes or instances that have happened. I suppose I've been on Instagram a little bit longer, 3 years. The influx of women is huge. When I started, I would say there was probably a dozen or so that I knew or I looked up to, and that has absolutely exploded, which I think is fabulous. And all over, a lot, like you say, shop managers, catering staff, anyone who actually has a passion is now exploring it because they have the opportunity to learn more online. And I think from that aspect, it is amazing. I think originally I did have a few comments, and for people that have followed me or know me for a long time, I was very hidden in my first 18 months. I never showed my face. All my images were very hidden. I was very like disguised because I didn't want to be a woman. Purely because I knew that there was a stigma, or I knew that there was a discussion about women just flaunting with bottles. I didn't want to be that person. But then I had the opposite effect because I hid myself, and that's not fair either. You know, it was a man in a suit looks great, a girl in a dress was, oh, she doesn't like whiskey, she's just posing with a bottle. So I actually hid myself, and actually I think that's fair. That's actually the opposite of what we should be doing. So in that sense, it's really evolved. And as you know, the debate has opened up. There's been so many discussions. We can bring up Murray. There's been so many explosions in the community. And for the nice part, I'd say 90% has been incredible. The amount of support, the amount of best friends I have. As soon as I had one comment, I just had to go to a group of my best whiskey friends, and they were like, oh, you don't do that to Hayley. And fortunately for me, because I've been around so long, I actually feel quite safe in the community. People know me. People wouldn't let that happen. And I'm very, very honored by that. I appreciate that every single day. But I do know a lot of younger, I say younger, but like they are younger, who've had some awful remarks and awful things said to them, which I've never experienced. So I do think it's still there, but I feel I'm quite lucky and sheltered. But I think a lot of the younger girls are still getting a little bit of that. I'd probably slap them. That's probably why I don't get it. They probably wouldn't mess with me.
Some would probably need
I'm probably
it,
feisty.
Go on Will Smith on them. Yeah. And yourself, Tori?
My experience has been, I don't know, mine has been overall really, really positive. Like Hayley, though, I was quite conscious about, being a woman within whiskey, and I didn't want to come across sexualized. I didn't want to my love and passion for whiskey be sort of overshadowed by the fact that I was a woman, and maybe like, if I sexualized myself, then it would be deemed that I didn't know anything about whiskey or anything like that. So I've always been very conscious of not doing that. But also, I work in a man's environment anyway. I come in the engineering industry, so it's nothing new to me to be in a sort of industry that is predominantly, stereotypically a man's world. But a few slight negative comments, but very few and far between, and probably not so much recently. Just when the whole, Whiskey Bible sort of call out came about, and that's very much died down now. But the support that I got, and I think I've only got when I've looked at my Instagram, I think there's about 9 to 10% of my followers are women, and the rest are men. And I have support through a number of men that friendly and supportive, and really encouraging the fact that I have this page, and I think that's only a positive thing.
Yeah.
100%. I think that's the point, though, is that men don't have to worry about being sexualized, but we do.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, there's nothing sexy about me and Russell, so we don't have that worry.
No. But that is the point. But I mean, but it's not just in the whiskey industry. I mean, it's still very much in general society, which a huge amount of improvement needs to happen there. But I guess, and a lot of women that I've spoken to have said that when they come into the industry, it's no one actually in the industry, or very rarely people in the industry. It tends to be other customers, other drinkers, that are the ones that are more vocal with what are you doing drinking whiskey, and even maybe some people in the industry, maybe potentially some barmen, where you go out with your partner or your wife and you order a gin and a whiskey, and the barman automatically puts the gin in front of the lady and the whiskey in front of the guy, not thinking that could completely be the opposite way around. And I've been in lots of companies where it absolutely is the other way around, because I love a gin when I go in, and a lot of my friends love whiskey. So it's often the case that
it happens to me all the time.
I think gin has done a great job on that itself. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that gin was kind of seen as very much a lady's drink. You would very rarely see guys, but they have.
You still get a bit of that when you go to the pub. If you go to the pub with your mates and you order a gin, your mates will kind of go, "Oh, aye." So there's still a bit of that kind of attitude out there,
You have to learn to own it, don't you?
There is. I think there is
Actually,
a change.
when I first started drinking whiskey.
Sorry, got a lag. I think
Sorry,
there is
my timing. I apologise.
I can see the changes with just marketing in general as well. Some of the marketing material, specifically from Glenmorangie, for example, has marketing campaigns with women there casually drinking, not even full, sexualized, where you're not seeing the image, but just the fact that a woman is there drinking whiskey, is a big statement to make as well. And it's trying to make it a bit more inclusive. And I think you see this movement that's coming through as well, that with the cocktails, whiskey cocktails, to try and bring new and younger whiskey drinkers in there. So that I think there is changes coming about. Some companies, some distilleries are better than others, and I still think there's a lot more to do there. But I think there is that change coming.
As well, I think the fact that we have so many women in the top job of whiskey is you've got.
Haley's got her hand up.
Oh, sorry.
I was like, can I? It's best if I do this, and then you can just.
That's the teacher coming out.
I was gonna continue with what. I know, I can't help it. Very early in my career, I always talked about the aesthetics of a bottle. Tori's heard this story. Sorry, Tori. Because I love a bottle. The way it looks, the way it feels. To me, that's part of the experience. I like how it looks. And so very early in my experience, I would talk about the aesthetics of a bottle. And I've had comments about, you should be a gin drinker. That's the whiskey. Because it was associated that gin had beautiful bottles and it was a female drink. And that has, a 360 turn, because brands are now looking at the aesthetics. They're looking at the whole experience. I mean, I had the rosé bottle this week. Beautiful. The whole bottle is a sensory experience just by touch. And look at Nick Nee, the way that the experience they're doing with their glass. It really has turned on the head. And I think bottles like the classic Talisker, like that Diego shape, is gone. I don't think there's a place for it. But I do understand that some people classic like what they've always had, and there will always be obviously that. But to that extreme, it has changed. And going on about marketing, like I love the Jameson's marketing. It's just people getting drunk, whether it's whiskey cocktail or whiskey with ice. It's just male, females, whoever, binary, having a nice time with alcohol. And we also have a lot of men drinking whiskey cocktails. And there's men that want to have ice. It shouldn't be anything. It shouldn't be a set stereotype. It's whatever you want. And I think brands really are appreciating that now and pushing that forward in their marketing.
Definitely, yeah.
I think you're used to saying the Jameson's is about people getting drunk. I guess that's the whole Irish kind of experience where people have fun. There's a sort of reasonably well known in certain circles folk musician, a guy called Dick Gaughan in the Scottish circles. Lots of people know who he is. Lots of people have no idea who he is. I had no idea who he was until about 10 years ago. and I should have probably known about him 30 years ago. But he's half Irish and half Scottish, and he used to, every single gig that he goes to, he always talks about that, and he says it's an odd way to be, because the Irish part of me lets me do what the hell I want, but the Scottish part of me makes sure that I don't enjoy it.
Just add an English one to that mix.
There's maybe too much seriousness in Scottish advertising, perhaps. I don't know.
I think they have to be very careful now, because, you know, if you cross any line, it gets picked up on, probably more so now than ever before. So they're very conscious of that fact. Tread very carefully.
You're right about the glamorizing, but not only sort of glamorizing with, you know, a woman in a dress and all kind of made up, but it's the men are always all sort of smart and neat and tidy as well. And maybe more of the advertising should be guys going into the pub in their jeans and trainers with a t-shirt on, ordering a fantastic single malt, because, you know, people just having out. Yeah,
tennis lager adverts.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Sure.
Dressing gown.
Yeah, Paul Dempsey.
I just don't want to get to a point where they're trying too hard and they dilute what whiskey is, you know, just to include women. You know, I want it to be that women sort of invited to like whiskey without feeling that it's a man drink, but without having to take all those lovely elements of whiskey, because they're trying to make it too girly. You know, it's not what it's about, is it? For me, I
finding
feel
a balance. I think there's a balance between not kind of emphasizing the point or repeating the point, and ignoring it. You know, because if you ignore it completely, it'll fester away. But if you kind of keep throwing it out there, it's kind of going too. You know, it's like a pendulum swinging, isn't it? It's just finding that balance of talking about it as if it's a natural thing, as if it's not new that women are drinking whiskey, which it's really not new. You know, I think Gary Dunsire had mentioned a wee bit back. It's the punters are just maybe a bit naive about the whole thing. Seeing women drinking whiskey in the local pub, and I think there's a different community, isn't there? There's the people in the local boozer are a completely different kind of community to people watching us tonight or following you on Instagram, maybe a little bit more learned about it, about the whiskey community online.
There is a naivety, but it's that whole public thing where people feel they're entitled to have an opinion of what somebody else is actually doing, but it's actually none of their business. You know, male, female, you know, it's nobody's business what you're drinking, who you are. But people in society seem to think they're entitled to an opinion to judge what you do or what you're saying or what you're doing. You know, and that's what cracks me up, really. You know, anybody could actually feel they could say, "Why are you drinking that?" You know, you're from Scotland. Why are you drinking an English whiskey? You're a female. Why are you drinking whiskey? Why should anyone in any society be allowed to do that? But that's kind of what we're stuck with just now, and that's the attitude we need to change.
It's the social media.
It's always been.
Yeah.
Yes, Hayley.
Yeah, I'm going to just say we look at women with pints.
Yeah.
We look at women drinking pints, and they're associating with that, isn't there? And that's always been there, and it always will be there. People will be like, "Oh, she's drinking some pints."
I was guilty of that.
If I wanted to, I would do it. Yeah.
My first date with my now wife, we've been together 11-ish years. And we went into the bar, and I asked her if she wanted a drink, and she asked for a pint of Stella. And I was like, "Oh my God, what have I got myself into here?" I think that's why we're still together.
You knew she was a keeper.
I was just scared what she would do if I left.
A ring on her straight away, didn't you?
Not quite. We had to tread water. She is English as well, so I had to. I wasn't going to jump straight in there. I had to make sure.
The whole north and south divide.
Yeah. So we've been together 11 years. We've been married for 2. So that's how long it took for me to be sure. But she's in the industry as well. She's been a tour guide. Thank you. She was a tour guide at Glendronach She was a tour guide at Glengarry. She now works for us in the shop. So me and Russell are the only guys in the shop. We have
heavily outnumbered.
4 women, working shop floor and behind the scenes as well. And one of them, so Annette, who's watching, she's one of our staff. She's asking, what do you think of whiskey from around the world? So in the shop, and this is very true, people come in, if it's not Scottish, they kind of stay away. And we are seeing a growth in world whiskey. Have you guys, what opinions on that?
I used to be that person. when I first started drinking whiskey, I'm not I was exactly, if it's not Scotch, I don't want to know. It's Scotch. And then I got bought an English whiskey, and I was like, English whiskey, please. And I thought, oh well, I'll try it. And it was so nice. It was a Cotswolds, and I think it was at that point that I started to just open up and sort of open up my horizons and not be so narrow-minded in my approach with it. And then I went on to try some Japanese whiskey, the Cheetah, and that was phenomenal. And then I made a pact that this year I would try more Irish. And by opening up those doors, it's really opened up to me trying some fantastic drams and just developing my whole sort of experience. But yeah, I was that person that was quite uneducated and quite narrow-minded with it.
I don't think that's uneducated. I think I understand that there's a representation, or there's an image, isn't there, associated with Scotch, and for most of us it's our beginner's drink. I mean, I was probably quite lucky because, as I said to you, I went to America and found sort of whiskey or American whiskey quite quickly, fell in love with rye. So my taste buds were instantly opened, and I made a pledge to myself when I moved to Germany that I would try German whiskey in Germany. So therefore, when I went to Czech Republic, I tried Czech Republic whiskey in Czech Republic. And then when I went to the Netherlands, so I make this, whenever I travel to a country, I want to try their whiskey. So I've opened up quite quickly. There's no doubt it's very young, and there's no doubt the taste is very different. The flavor complexities are different, and that is exciting. The problem is there is just too many whiskeys you're ever going to try. There's hundreds. They're coming out, so quickly now. So if you want to just drink Scotch, I think, I think that's absolutely fine, because actually that will take you a lifetime anyway. But that if you really want to get a different flavor or just understand about the different processes that these countries are using, Kamara, with all their incredible processes, innovative things that they're doing, I think it's quite a shame if you don't. But I don't think we should knock people that don't want to do it, because there's always going to be enough options for them.
I think as well as you're just kind of touching on there as well, is you're not just buying into the whiskey, you're buying into the culture of the country that's making that whiskey. There are different climates, different cultures, different ways of drinking it. You think kind of Southern Europe or in Asia, very much a mix and drink, highballs and all these kind of things. And then you pour it into a glass in a Glencairn or something, and it's just really different to what we kind of are used to. And it's instant, that's not as good, put it away. It's not good, it's just different. It's maybe not made for drinking neat. A lot of bourbons are made for mixing and things like that. So you have to kind of have that open-mindedness as well, that you're not just tasting a different drink, you're tasting a different culture and maybe a different way of drinking whiskey as well.
But it's a cost of a lot of the foreign whiskies
like
as
that
well.
idea,
A lot of the foreign whiskies are very expensive, and for me, I wouldn't go and spend £100 on a Japanese whiskey when I can get a brilliant Scotch for 50, or I can get 2 bottles of that Scotch for 50. So I can't afford to do that. So I wouldn't experiment so much. I mean, the only bottle of Japanese whiskey I had was a Yamazaki, and I bought it in that sense of giving it a try. I think it was around about £70. So it was a bit of a stretch, and I thought, well, it must be a good whiskey. I took it home, and it was a screw top bottle, and immediately I thought, what's this? This is nonsense. And I decided I wasn't going to like it, so I didn't like it. I had 2 drams, I put the top back on, and I shoved it to the back of the cupboard. But then about a year later, I decided I was being a bit of an idiot, so I tried it again. It was actually okay.
I've got a screw top here from.
I agree with Hayley. There's so much. It's not that I don't want to try these other whiskies. There's just so much Scotch that I'm still behind in trying. I'm still playing catch up with Scotch, so I really don't have time to introduce these other ones to my budget for a start, and also my liver. So you know, it's difficult to spread your. But if I was the same with you, Hayley. If I was in Germany, or if I was Sweden, I would no doubt I would go and try more of these whiskies in that particular country because they'd probably be more readily available. I'm guessing.
Yeah. I just bottle cooled with Matt Cordner last week, and bottle still here was the Mizunado from Chivas, and that's got a screw top, which was the first thing. I was the same as you. I was like, I've never seen that before in a bottle of whiskey. But that was a Japanese oak, which is really good whiskey.
Well, I have seen it before in a bottle of whiskey. It's a bottle of grouse and a bottle of bells. Colin's asking if I'm into that.
Right. It's funny that you sort of touched on sort of like cost and stuff. I found as I've kind of like gone further into this whiskey journey, I've become more desensitized to the price of whiskey and the amount that I will actually spend is consistently increased. Whereas when I was starting out, I mean, yeah, bear in mind when I worked at Glendronach, I spent, I think it was £80 on a hand-filled bottle. But I was buying the experience. I didn't mind that at the time. But when I was starting out, you know, £40 for a bottle of whiskey was probably my max. And then it went to 50. And now I'm at the stage that I don't even batter an eyelid at £200. You know, and I want to open it and I want to drink it as well. It's not going to be sat on my shelf. And the more you sort of carry on, my sort of whiskey habit, my spending habit has become more and more. Is that sort of the same for you guys, or are you quite, you know, strict with your sort of budget payments?
I'm going back the other way, Tori. I've started going to the co-op and buying the 10-year-old Glen Grant for £22, or you know, because I've kind of got to this stage. By the way, I'm thinking £80 for a bottle of handful at Glendronach. That's a bit like saying that you got a packet of fags for £1.
Yeah, it's a long time ago, that one, isn't it?
Looking at a handful for £80.
Yeah, I know. Well, this was back in 2015, so got a few years since then.
Yeah, but I'm definitely going back the other way. I'm starting to buy the cheaper drinks again because it's more affordable, and yeah.
Well, I think we're all quite lucky in the sense that we're exposed to so many drams in what we do, so many different, that you realise that you don't have to have a massive budget to have a good whiskey.
Yeah.
You know, one of the favourites that we have in the shop that we kind of talk about quite a lot is the Adelphi private stock blend. £23 for a drinking whiskey. It's absolutely banging. You know, what a great dram. But I do like, you know, I do like to spend a little bit of money on something that you know is going to be quality. For a special, I just poured one of the more recent handfuls of 2008, which I think was about 400. I think that's round about the most that I've spent. But you know it's good, and lucky enough to try it before you buy it, kind of thing. But do you guys find one of my biggest issues being at the shop, and Russell is fast finding out the same, is the amount of samples that you might get sent to try to either review or blog about, or to take for us to stock in the shop, and you just don't have time to go through it all. And you know, I always say that one night I'm just going to take them out and invite some friends round, put them on the table, and say, you know, have at it. You know, just drink them all, because I might.
Well, Mike, if you're struggling, feel free to send some over. I can always try and find some time.
I have that.
I don't mind helping you out, honestly.
Yeah.
I think I'll maybe take you up on that, Tori.
I'm moving to Berlin.
Sorry, Hayley.
Sorry.
On you go.
Sorry, I'm moving to Berlin, and this is my second time moving in 8 months. And samples are the things that I seem to collect hundreds of, because, like you say, I'll do that next week. And it never happens. And now I have like this big box of samples again that I have to get rid of. And when I left Germany last time in July, I had a box this big. Must have been hundreds of samples I just gave away to friends. doesn't have the time to enjoy them. I want to enjoy it. I don't want to just sit here and kind of quickly write something. I want to actually have that experience. So I do understand. I mean, it's a tough life, isn't it? I can't complain.
Yes.
I know you can't believe that we're complaining about having too much. But I think as well,
instantly lost the audience. Everybody switched off. They hate us.
But as well, Hayley, you're saying there, you've been given this sample or this taster from somebody. You want to give it the respect that it's due, you know, because you want to try in solitude and taste it and give that person back some feedback on it, whether it's a new product or it's just somebody has told you one of their favorite drams. You know, you want to get back to them and say, this is what I thought of it.
More so when it's a freebie from a follower or somebody that sent me something. I actually appreciate that much more than a brand, because it's really lovely that people want to send me something that they love. So actually I find that more precious, because I'd actually want to give them more time and feedback than I actually would a brand, which doesn't you know, make me any bigger, but actually I'm really touched by every single person that wants to do that.
How do you guys feel about reviewing a whiskey that you've maybe got from a brand or an independent bottle or something that you didn't like? How do you play that card?
If I say this live, then they'll know what my little trick is.
Complex.
I honestly don't like to. Well, no, I honestly do not like to say something's good if it's not good. But also I'm in a position where I don't want to completely slate a thing. So there's a very, very fine balance, because you've got to be respectful. But also, for me, I have a number of followers that, you know, if I'm to make myself be reputable and respectful in that, and people know that my reviews are honest and I'm not selling out, then, you know, I need to, that's my biggest sort of responsibility that I feel is to the followers. So yeah, there's a very fine line. And also something, because it's not my taste doesn't mean that it's not someone else's. So I will try and give the notes that I've picked up. A recent one was for me the Fisherman's Retreat independent bottle. Now for me, I posted that, I put my notes, they were very honest. I said it was a bit of a roller coaster dram for me. I put, you know, there were sweet notes and there was like leathery notes and a bit of musk and everything like that. And I was so surprised as well by the comments that I had, because so many people said like, oh, that sounds a fantastic dram. Whereas I sort of struggled with some of it personally, because it had these sort of musky, really leathery notes. And, you know, if people know me, I'm a real sucker for a sweet whiskey. But it was a very interesting dram, and I made that clear that it was interesting, and it took me on this roller coaster. But I think, you know, it is very hard, because you want to also keep relationships with companies, but you also want to make sure that your reviews are honest to the people that are sort of following you.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's.
I think from
well,
that.
For us, no, on you go, Heather. You have permission to speak.
A lot of brands that I speak to, a lot of brands that you speak to actually want the honesty, and most brands will say, look, even if you're not the biggest fan, we want you to be honest. I can honestly say I've never been paid for anything I've done, and I'm very grateful for the hashtag gifted, because even if I'm looking at somebody else's blog, as soon as I hear gifted, I'm okay, I have an expectation that they've been gifted something, and they may be writing it not in an over positive or negative way, but they're going to be writing a bit more neutral, and I need to see what they're going to say. And I think actually that helps readers to look at what we're doing, because we're being honest when it's gifted. But brands do want you to be honest, because they know you're not all going to like it. I mean, they obviously want good feedback and they want to be promoted. I joke with Tori a lot. I'm always the black sheep at tasting every single time. Like, people are like, oh yeah, that 21's my favourite, and I'll be the one that's going, oh, the 17-year-old. I'm always the opposite, because obviously my favourite palettes are from. And as we talk about, I know. But as we talk about, the palate's always different. And my last tasting I went to, they were going through the notes, and I was like, I don't like it. I don't like it. And I openly said I did to Ronnie Cox. Don't like this. He's like, brilliant, Hayley, it's great. But everyone else is like, this is the best dram all evening. And I'm like, oh, we having different experiences. So actually, if you, like you say, if you know Tori, if you know me, they know your shop, they actually have an expectation because they know how you deliver it. And actually, I think that makes it better about your personality.
Definitely.
I did have an experience with a brand. I won't say who they are, but I ended up posting my review of them before I'd seen a message from them, and they were wanting to vet my post. And hand on heart, I genuinely did not see their message before I sent it. And within my message, I put that I gave them the review. I was genuinely happy with the dram. I thought it was a pleasant enough dram. But I said that I personally wouldn't spend the amount of money that they were selling it on. And they messaged me that they were not happy with what I wrote about, saying that I wouldn't spend that amount. And I was like, well, I did say I personally, it was my caveat, I personally wouldn't. And they were like, oh, yeah, okay. But they were quite a difficult brand to deal with. And the fact that they wanted to vet my post, I mean, if I saw it before I sent it, I still wouldn't have sent it. That's not what I'm about at all.
I mean, it is tough because for us being a shop as well is, if we buy in a case of whiskey or whatever, we put a review out saying me and Russell hate this whiskey. We have to go to the shop the next day and sell it. It's people kind of read, why you sell with that? You said it was crap. Like, well, yeah, everyone's different, which is great about having a team as well, because Janice, who works in the shop, she's kind of our main shop full-time lady, and we have very different opinions on Glengarry, for example, or Glencadam, which one is our favourite. So it's good to have that bounceability. If somebody's in the shop and they're asking which one, you're like, well, I prefer the 12-year-old, Janice prefers the Founders Reserve. So you've got that mix of and within the whole team, I think we've got quite a good mix of different opinions of what is good and what is bad. I went through a phase of giving Russell samples, which he really didn't like, and I was like, how can you not like this? This is amazing. And Russell was like, what are you giving me? It's garbage. I'm starting to think that my palate's gone, or I'm doing something really bizarre with the whiskey. I'm thinking, no, I do enjoy it. It's a bit sticking to your.
It's a funny thing because I'm not going to say which one it was, but we had a shot bottle fairly recently, and we got a lot of samples for it. And the one that we chose was out of this world, just an incredible whiskey. But two of the other three, or the other four were kind of okay. They weren't bad at all, but one was absolutely rank. And I poured it down the sink. I thought, I'm not actually putting myself through drinking this. I've had a taste, I've had a nose. I'm not drinking that. So down the sink it goes. And Mike said, what are you doing that for? I wasn't going to drink it. I thought, well, why muck about? Why, you've got to be honest with what you think. It doesn't mean I'm right. It just means I really didn't like it. So I'm not going to. But I've got to be careful what I say, because Mike does have a habit of dropping me in it with with people who make particular products.
Yeah.
You
can't say you've got to be honest and then follow up with that. You've got to be honest. You've got to be honest.
I was busy talking to someone who was giving out samples in the shop of their particular product, and I'd made the mistake of previously saying to Mike that it was a particular drink that I didn't particularly enjoy. And he came into the shop, and I was chatting away to this person, and he straight away said, "Why are you speaking to them? You don't even like their drink."
I'm not sure that's how the conversation went. Yeah. I think your memory's going a little bit. But Hayley, you had your hand up there for a wee while. So.
That's verbatim.
Sorry, for a little while. But I feel like you guys saying that live as well gives your customers a confidence. Because if you go into a shop and then the shop owners are like trying to put a whiskey on you, especially if you're kind of less confident about being in a shop, because I think shopping in a shop is much different to going online, and then you don't like it. Oh, but am I meant to like this? Oh shit, am I supposed to like these flavors? And I think it goes back to, if you want to encourage a broader people to enjoy this, if you want to encourage a broader audience to come in and try things and to come to your shop, the fact that you're honest and have different perspectives, the fact that you joke about those perspectives, the fact that you have different members of staff who go, well, that's my favorite, because you have different palates, actually enriches the experience and is better for customers.
Yeah.
And it's really good if there's
Maybe
one drink.
shops should like have the option where they have, if they've got a team, that they should put tasting notes from each of the team members, or like a rating from each of the team members. And then the person buying it actually makes up their own mind, because like we've said, you know, one person absolutely loves it and a different person slates it and thinks it's howling. So how does a consumer look at just, you know, one tasting note from one opinion
That's a tasting note and a half, isn't it?
and make that judge? I don't understand why there's not more, you know, more on there.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
For me, yeah.
You know, in that way, the regulars will maybe know that they don't like my palate, so they'll avoid my tasting notes, but maybe go for Russell's or Katz or somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know, if you're saying it out there, look, this is a team, you know, and emphasize the fact not everybody likes the same flavors. These are the notes, these are our ratings. You know, because what I find really useful is always looking at the reviews of people, you know, when they've left a review on a whiskey, and I'll read them through, and, you know, some people love it. But the problem you've also got is that a lot of people are sheep. So if you see a few reviews, everyone's going, oh, this is fantastic. And you're like, really? But you might feel inclined to do the same. So reviews for me, you've still got to take a pinch of salt. But if you're putting yourself out there and saying, this is our honest, these are from a panel, an honest review, you make up the decision based on the tasting notes. I think it just gives a little bit more, I don't know, variety. Opens it up to more people. Like I said, with the dram I tried, people loved the tasting notes that I would put in, and not always to my liking.
Yeah, and I think it is all about building up that reputation. If people start to, they understand, or they maybe got a similar palate to what yours is, then they'll happily take anything you recommend. There's a couple of people, and we've all got people like that. I mean, Janice probably got more than anybody because she sees more customers. But we've all got people who'll come into the shop, and if we're on the floor, they'll say, "What should I have? Give me something different." And I love that, especially if you're busy packing a shelf and you just hear the guy that you know say that, and you just reach for a bottle and pass it to him and carry on working, and he goes away and buys it. You're like, because that, you know, and he'll just go and do it, and then you'll get a message from him later on saying, or her saying, "Yeah, brilliant, absolutely fantastic, another cracker." And I love that you just, you know, you just pick one up. You don't even have the discussion. They come in and say, "Give me something different." There you go. And then I love that you have that relationship with people, that you get to know their palate and what they're going to enjoy as well. I think that's one of the good things about it.
So if you
one of the things
guys,
I love actually about being in a shop, in an actual whiskey shop, and I find it really important to go. So when lockdown happened, you know, I really missed it. But it is that interaction with the people working in the shop, and, you know, you end up going down these little rabbit holes talking about whiskey, you know, and you asking the recommendations, and everything's really tactile, and you end up getting a lot of knowledge just by speaking to these people that you might not get on an online shop. So I find sort of that the high street sort of whiskey shops are really important to me.
Yeah. We just had our customer, Michael, who's one of our good customers. I'll be seeing him tomorrow night at the gin tasting, actually. So he just vouching for Janice, said that she's put onto the Berry Brothers, which the Speyside blended malt. Our biggest selling of the Berry Brothers is the sherry one, but the Speyside blended is a cracking drink. And I think that's another thing that attracts people, is the colour, and people think that they have to like it because it's dark. and it must be good because it's dark, you know, and you're talking kind of that kind of color compared to, and I was looking, and I don't have maybe something like that. It's, you know, people look at that and think, oh, that can't be that good because it's not dark. That is certainly something that annoys me.
Yeah. Talking about Berry Brothers, you had a rather good start to the week, Hayley.
I still can't admit that it happened. Like, I'm still pinch me.
The jealousy of
Hang on,
levels are up here.
I haven't even posted anything yet. You haven't seen the pictures. I don't know quite how that happened. I don't know how I deserved it. I don't even know where to start. I've come home with a bottle of Berry Bros signed by Ronnie Cox on his retirement evening because I was at his retirement party without knowing that's what it was. And I just mind blown. Yeah, I'm incredibly fortunate. Yeah. I can't.
He's some guy.
So, I mean, Tori's, oh my golly, I love him. I actually love him. He's just most incredibly charming. Hayley, just amazing. And I just, the way he talks is just dreamlike. Tori's had some amazing jaunts. I mean, we have to mention hers if you're going to mention mine. But I was invited to the Berry Bros for the launch of the Razai whiskey. And I went up to London for the evening. Wasn't even going to go. Monday night, traveling to London. Oh God, we didn't go. I walked in at 6:30 on the dot, greeted with a glass of champagne, and Ronnie Cox, Hayley, so lovely to see you. I'm so glad you're here. And I was like, hi. It was so shocking. They took my bag off me, and he's like, meet Colin White, 3 drinkers. Meet Charlie, and he just ran to take these men, and I was like, hi. Had no idea what was going on in my life in any shape, but was not prepared. I stood there with this glass of champagne, and my leg was shaking, like this. And you don't want to be, but the adrenaline's going like this. Yeah. Hayley, hold it together.
Amazing.
Thankfully for me, Ian Robinson from Posh Scotch came in, and he's one of my best friends. So he came in, and I was like, thank the Lord, I have a friend. And then Evan from Top Whiskies came in, and of course I know him online. It was fabulous. Ronnie Cox was like, Hayley, do you know this building? This wall here was from the original tennis courts of Henry VIII. And look at these books from the 16th century, like the weight of all these. It was just incredible. And then what did I do? What did WhiskyGirl do? She put her heel through the 16th century wood floors of the Berry Bros building. I went, and I stood there, Ronnie are talking, and I went, no. So Ian took my champagne. I got Ronnie holding my Jamaica handbag, holding my arm. Hayley, are you okay? And I bent down, holding my heel, pulling it out of the floorboard.
Oh, that's amazing.
Best moment ever.
Wait, make
11 guests. Yeah. 11 guests, the only female in high heels with a handbag. Yeah. Oh, yes. We go down 2 floors to the cellar. No, Ronnie is leading the way, and in front of all the guests. Hayley, don't worry, be careful on these stairs, your high heels, and if you fall, I'll catch you. Yeah, and then we get downstairs. He pulls my chair out. I sit down like a lady because I don't know what to do with myself. He tucks me in. The gentlemen all walk to their places, and they all stand up, and I'm the only lady sitting. And I thought, do I get up? Do I stay down? Do I get up? It was this moment of, I don't know what to do with myself. Then we luckily sat down, and then Ronnie starts doing this speech about, tonight's my retirement party. Me and Ian, aka Posh Scotch, look at each other and we're like, what the fuck? We just knew our heads were going, why are we here? And then Ronnie's like, blah, blah, you're here and I have the best people from the industry. And me and Ian and Evan from Top Whisky is clock eyes of each other. And you just know that we're totally overwhelmed, thinking, don't quite know what's going on here. But yeah, incredible. They all drank way too many whiskies. We had 4 amazing Razai whiskeys. We had the new one released by Berry Bros. We had white wine, red wine, and a dessert wine from Berry Bros. Wine with this a la carte silver service menu. But they were all a bit tipsy. So the pictures I have of me and Ronnie and the pictures I have of me and Charlie, I'm like this. These like broken faces. I can't use them on my social media. They're horrific because we're all drunk.
That's
amazing. And everybody, Ronnie's like, I'm going to sign this bottle for you because this is my last release and it's all incredible. Then we go to the pub next door and they all order pints, and it was just, yeah, I'm still pinching myself. I don't quite know how I got there, but I'm incredibly honoured, especially to be the only female. It was really, really touching. And on the way up, Ronnie said to me, I've seen your website and I love what you're doing. You've seen my website? I don't know what to do with myself because I don't think I'm doing that great a job. But if you say so, I'm going to go home and sleep very well. So yeah, thank you for bringing it up because I'm like dying to read of it. But I'm waiting for some photographs from the official photographer.
I think we're all together. Next time you put your hand up, we're not going to let you speak.
But do talk about Tori's now, because Tori has the amazing.
No, we're not doing. No, we won't talk about mine. After trying to follow up that, we'd be like, we're trying to get into competition. We might have to leave this for another time.
I was going to bring up Tori because I mean, what a story, Hayley. That's incredible. It's so fresh as well. I think we've got you at a great time. But Tori, you were named as one of the top 5 women making waves in whiskey. Was it LLM magazine or Luxury magazine?
Luxury Lifestyle magazine. In
an article up with Rachel Barry, Dr. Rachel Barry, Amy Seaton, Becky Baskin. Amazing to be named with some of these real. I'm lucky enough to meet Amy on the Isle of Whiskey Academy. What she's doing is great. Rachel from my hometown of Inverurie, so what she's doing at Glendronach, now making your favourite distillery whiskey, and then there's yourself right up there. So that in itself is a story.
I know it was it came as a bit of a shock actually, because I got contacted just by someone on Instagram and was just like, oh, we're just wanting to do like a piece on sort of like women in sort of like the industry for National Women's Day. Would you be interested in answering some questions? I was like, yeah, sure. So I sent back sort of like my answers to it, and next minute I'm in Luxury Lifestyle magazine. I'm like, oh my god, this is just insane. To just be with just part of those women that they've listed on there, I feel kind of out of place, really. Very, very humble about it. I mean, obviously Rachel Barry's just like a little demigod of the whiskey to me. So yeah, just incredible.
Brilliant, yeah. And so we've done the highlight on there. Can we ask you what your story is that Hayley was alluding to?
Yeah. So last week I was invited to the sort of press release of the Royal Salute 26-year-old Scottish Oak. First of all, I just want to say absolutely phenomenal dram. But it was up in Aberlour.
Yes.
I'm going to say that right. Well, basically stayed in the castle overnight.
Oh, wow.
Driven about in Land Rovers. I was taken to Strophyla Distillery, beautiful, picturesque distillery.
Yeah.
Had a tour of that, and then taken into the private vaults of Royal Salute to taste a 58-year-old whiskey. Whisked off to taste their 26-year-old fantastic Scottish oak dram, along with their 21-year-old fine dining. Honestly, the fact that I was in a castle and the bathroom had underfloor heating, I was just, like, wow, right, I've made it. This is me. I was like, living my best life.
That was actually the underfloor heating's a wee Scottish guy underneath with a fire, keeping it going.
I wouldn't have said Russell, because they could have been there with Bunsen burners heating it up. I was like, I'm literally going to lie on this. So like, this is amazing.
Did you lie on it, Tori? Were you like, I'm staying here for the evening?
I was just like, this is nice, warmed. I had bathrobes, little slippers. Honestly, it was incredible. A bit like Haley. I think me and Haley get on so well because we are both a little bit socially awkward and always get ourselves in little situations. And I ended up driving because our planning arrangements wasn't done till quite late. So I was like, right, I'll drive. So I drove 6.5 hours from where I live up there. And we had to be there by 12. So I went travel clothes, I mean, like leggings, hoodie, Uggs and stuff. And I rocked up early and I've knocked on the door. I've just opened it up. And this woman comes in really posh and she's like, honestly, I looked bedraggled. I think they was like, oh my God, who is this like ragamuffin that's just like sort of walked in? And it was just like, yes, I'm a WhiskyTee. No one sort of knew what I was on about, and I was like, Tori, so I had to get my email. And it was like, oh no, this person here. And luckily the PR guys were there and actually knew that I wasn't just kind of like coming in to squat in this lovely castle. And apparently I was like super early, but I got the chance to get changed, make myself look presentable. And it was just a crazy experience. Fantastic. And posh Scotch Ian was there.
Amazing.
He seems to be getting about the place, doesn't he?
We need to become friends with him.
Yeah, he's amazing. Great guy. He's one of my first friends. Yeah. I think my first 10 followers was this one guy called Kit, who was best friends with Ian. And me and Ian have been best friends right at the beginning of time. So my first ever like Instagram PRE exclusive was Bimber Distillery when it first opened in 2018. And I took Ian. So he's my first Instagram friend, he's my first whiskey connection, and I absolutely love him to pieces. He's a little bit posh, which is why he's called Posh Scotch.
He's very posh.
But he's incredible. Like, yeah, I'm so glad you had him. Well, I just want to say, when you're talking about the floor, I think if it was me and you in that PR thing, you would have reels of me and you going, oh, whiskey on the floor. Whiskey angels. It would have been a much different experience. There'd been kinds of content you didn't want to see.
Honestly, when we were
I think brands know
that. He's so good at photography. He's amazing. And I'm like, and I've just got kind of like, I bought a DSLR camera when my daughter was born to take pictures, and now it's less pictures of her and more of whiskey bottles. But it's like, all the gear, no idea. And Ian's there with these like, amazing photos. And I was just like, Ian, sort out my settings on this camera, help me. And he's like, yeah. He's like figuring it out, because he didn't have the same camera as me. And he's like, oh, do this. And he spent time to actually tell me what the settings were and help me out and stuff. And that really helped me. And he just absolute sweetheart. I'm like, Ian, come over here, pal. Sort this out.
Although I have to say, at the BR, the Berry Bros event, he did take the best pictures of me, but he also took the most horrific pictures of me, and he sent them on my WhatsApp, and I was like, delete, like, do not see daylight. Because the worst pictures. So, like, he's good, but you need to watch him.
Gosh, we're in the wrong job, Mike.
I know. I don't even think I've got a story to match that. Any of them. No.
You standing in the next to Charlie McLean in the urinal's not kind of.
It doesn't. It doesn't quite.
I thought my eyes shut, and I'm like, but he's just as bad. So let's just say that.
He is. Yeah. We. I got
I
invited.
have to say, Mike and Russell.
Yeah.
I was going to ask where you are in Scotland, because I don't know where you're based.
Our nearest distillery is Glengarry, so we're kind of northeast, just outside Aberdeen.
Okay.
So yeah.
Oh God, you're quite north. Okay.
If you think of the part of Scotland where nobody ever goes to, because it's not the West Coast, and it's not Edinburgh, and it's not Glasgow, but it is the most beautiful, and you have to come up. So Aberdeenshire. So if you imagine, the big fat bit of Aberdeenshire, right up towards the top, about 10 miles from the coast is where I live, and it's quite close to Glendronach Distillery, quite close to Glenglasser Distillery, Inchgower, Macduff, places like that. So yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to have to interrupt you guys.
I've been to Aberdeen because
I'm going to have to actually make a dash to pick my little girl up from.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm so sorry.
No problem at all.
Honestly, I could talk to you guys for hours, but I've got to.
Sorry. If we always say to people, especially when we have these kind of chats, if we need to do a part 2, so we'll definitely do a part 2.
Absolutely.
And we also need to see you up at the shop, and we need to spend some time in person, sharing a few drams. But next time you're up this way, so make sure you give us a shout. When you're,
absolutely.
The next time you're invited to some fancy do, make sure you come and see us first.
The next time you're staying in a castle,
maybe me and Haley need to do a road trip up to Scotland and see you guys.
Yeah,
I'm
come and see us.
in Edinburgh. So if anyone that's listening, I'm in Edinburgh from the end of July to the end of August because I work for the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoos. That's my summer job.
Okay.
So I'm a liaison officer for the crew and the cast. So I will be in Edinburgh. I'm going to be at the Whisky Fringe. I've got an Scotch or Whisky Society event. So at that time, I started asking where you are because I want to travel up. Maybe I can get up to you and maybe do something with you. But Tori is going to be coming and sharing my university room because that's what we're given. So she will be in Edinburgh as well at some point in August. We will just figure it out.
Well, the train goes from Edinburgh all the way to Inverurie. It's a one-way journey. So yeah, we'll get
Hey, exactly. Tori, put in the diary.
Yeah,
I would say it's a one-way journey. We will let you back.
So yeah, it does go back. It's a return trip. Yes, you do get to leave.
Right, I'm gonna have to go, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Take care.
It's a pleasure having you on, and we'll be in
Tori.
touch.
Love you. Bye.
Love you.
It's a testament to our friendship. You talked about the relationship that you guys have and you work together. I think me and Tori are a testament to the idea that you can be online and make friendships. And I think that's what Whisky does. Definitely. And I'm so grateful for Whisky being in my life because actually she's one of my best friends, like Ian from Posh Scotch. I've really met a community that means so much to me that I don't have in real life. And I think that is what Whisky can do. It's not just an alcoholic drink, which is what an association is. It is a community, it's a friendship, it's an experience. It's not just you go out to get pissed at the pub. Like you buy a bottle, it lasts for months. You share it with your friends, or you only open the best bottles when people come around. Or you might have a relationship with your dad or your granddad, or like you say, you go to a tasting or you go to a whiskey show. It's more than an alcoholic drink. And I really feel that you don't really see that until you get into it. And then you have to explain to people that you're paying £200 for a bottle. They don't understand why, but actually there's a whole tremendous like pre-effect that builds up that spending that £200, because you might have been to the distillery and you might have met the blender, or you might have met the master distiller, and you have a relationship and you followed their story. So when they release that bottle, it has an impact on you personally. And I don't think you know that until you're within the community. And I think that's what actually makes the communities quite special, because once you're in on that kind of secret, you're sold, don't you? Like, you've given your heart to Satan, there's no going back, because you can never give it up.
Absolutely. And it is something that no other drink, I think, has.
It doesn't because there's a proper journey to from everything, and it's not just the bottle that you get, and it's not even just the distillery, it's the farmer that's growing the barley to begin with. It's the after product of that. And, I get slated all the time for being a farmer geek. I love farm machinery. I'm a frustrated farmer. I should have been one, but I love that side of it. I love either side of the industry that benefits and creates what we've actually got as well. And when you're up in places like Speyside, not only do you see distillery after distillery, you see lorry after lorry that's actually taking casks away. It's taking spirit away. It's it's the whole massive side of the industry is just huge. And you always meet people.
It really is in your blood. In your community,
absolutely.
It really is. Yeah, you become part of it. And like I said, like when you go to small distilleries, or you may go to tourists, but actually if you go to when it's not a tourist season, you see the community. Like I said, when I went to Glen for the first time, the tattoo has an outreach project where they send tattoo performers to perform at the distillery for the locals, because they realize that people can't actually always get out and see the show. And it's that idea that actually a community is built around a distillery, therefore it has a community. Therefore, you have a social identity. Therefore, you have a love, and you have this respect, don't you, of the process and being involved. And us being, for me, from my perspective, being down south or living in Germany, my love for a brand would be purely from the taste. But actually, if you live in where you do, you actually respect a brand in your community, because it's a different relationship to you, and it's not always about the taste. It's always put a little bit more of identity to it. And I think once you're in this kind of idea that it's more than just a taste or a brand, you got sucked. You're in it, you're out, you can't leave it, can you? Then you'll pass it on to your kids, the grandkids. It's an ongoing cycle, and that's what whiskey really is. It's an identity. Similar to Irish whiskey, it becomes an identity to your family and your roots.
And I think one thing, being in the northeast of Scotland, we're in prime barley country. We're known as the ladder of Scotland because we grow some great, or maybe a little bit biased, but I think it's widely regarded as the best cereals going. But
let's open that debate.
There's no debate. We're right.
There's no debate.
It's a winner.
The real debate was when we started talking about the Peats and Fergus, and that's the best. In Scotland. So there's something. But we have customers come to the shop, and we're talking about the Whiskey Academy, which we've just held. I would say it would be really good, talking to who I perceived as not just a customer, but a farmer who was happened to be a customer. We're talking about going up to the maltings and seeing the barley, and he just kind of nonchalantly turned around and we send our barley up there. So you grow barley for whiskey? He said, that's as if everyone does it. And I think that's we look in awe at some of these people. You're the very start of the whole whiskey industry, but to them it's an everyday job, and I think that's relevant right through. You speak to a stillman in any distillery, and it's his job, or her job. It's what they do every day. To them, they're not part of this huge industry of bringing people together. They're just a 9 to 5 for them, working a wee job away.
Which is interesting, because their fathers did it, and their grandfathers did it. And actually, sometimes you find that it's like a family tradition to have the same role, and they don't see how their role is so significant in the big scheme of things. But actually, they're following in such a tradition of their community that to an outsider, it's phenomenal. It's something I would want to celebrate. And like you say, marketing, I think, and branding actually celebrates those little figures now more than it used to, because it's this everyday person that makes that whiskey, that contribution to the whole system that we enjoy, which actually I want to see more of.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely.
We'll have to get you up to the academy then.
Yeah.
Well, for sure.
Do you
Absolutely.
know what I have to say? I was looking at your website, your Instagram, but I didn't realise you had an academy. This is quite a new. Is it quite new?
Yeah, we had our first one just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's worse.
Amazing.
Can you see the bags under our eyes still after it?
Were you
Okay.
guys lecturing? Were you teaching the content?
I was driving.
We were mainly the drivers and the instigators. We brought in some guest speakers to kind of do most of that side of things. But yeah, so a week long. We're looking at running it twice a year, March and September, week long. Basically based in Aberdeenshire.
Okay. Let me get a little bit of an idea of what your academy is different to others then, because I know there's a lot of academies in Scotland that have a qualification that people can use to represent their knowledge of whiskey. So how is yours different? I mean, what your academy involves in regards to content, and what to the student?
So I thought Russell was going to jump in. Effectively, it's an experience.
You were nervous.
There's no qualification at the end of it. It's not an educational piece, although you will learn. So what we do is we speak closely to a lot of distilleries in our area, focus on Aberdeenshire really. We have a day out in Speyside, and we get the guys kind of up close and personal with a lot of the distilleries. We took them to the maltings. I think the maltings up at Chris Maltings, up at Port Gordon, not Invergordon.
Yeah.
Callum's watching. And just different things. We got into the cooperage. We spoke about the wood. We had a couple of guest speakers, Ben Chambers being one. We did a sherry dinner, so the guys learned all about the different sherries. So kind of looking at things in the whiskey industry where you might not really pick up on from.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to do the Springbank School. That I've done a couple of courses at Edinburgh, and I was on the Isla Whisky Academy. So all of those, we're probably more akin to the Isla Whisky Academy when it's experiences. Yeah. It's getting people, meeting people like Quinelli at the Glengarry Distillery, Richard Beattie at Glenallachie, Stuart Buchanan at Glendronach. So kind of the great and the good of our area of whiskey making. I would love it if Aberdeenshire became its own region. I think the whiskey's there, the history is there. You have
enough distilleries, don't you? Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Controversial. We've got more distilleries in Campbelltown, that's for sure.
Yeah. We're only two short of Isla as well.
I think the only thing Mike's kind
I think that's interesting as well.
Sorry,
Russell. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was just going to say the only thing Mike's missed out is for both of us, but particularly Mike being a proper Aberdeenshire lad. I was born and brought up in the Highlands, and I'm now, well, I've lived most of my life in Aberdeenshire. But it's really to promote the area, because it's not an area that actually is properly understood. There's not enough people come and spend time here, and it is a fabulous area. We've got mountains, we've got the coast, we've got a whole load of distilleries, and we've got everything in there. The barley for the industry is grown. It's malted here, and then we've got the distilleries where it's all made, and the experience can all be had here. And there's so many giants from the industry work here as well. So we've got this great ability to get people introduced. And over the last 6 years and probably beyond that Mike's been in the shop, he's made absolutely incredible contacts to get proper personal experiences from people as well. And the behind the scenes stuff that we got, the guys got 2 weeks ago was second to none. Into distilleries that are actually closed and not open to visitors, and getting tours in those distilleries as well. So we literally took everything from the sensory understanding of why we like and taste and understand whiskey to how it's actually made at every single level. And that was everything that we learned in terms of an academy. Everything that we learned along the way intertwined every single day. We went to the cooperage. The guy at the cooperage spoke about the peat that we heard about at the at the maltings. The Glenallachie, one of the guy that took us around Glenallachie, Richard, used to work at the maltings. So there's that kind of connection. We were talking about people who said, I used to work with him. Oh, I used to work with him. Oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So you got all of that kind of interment. And it then took all everything that you learned along the way kind of popped out every single day. It was we learned about that yesterday. Somebody spoke about that this morning. And that was the way that so in terms of an academy, it's definitely got that learning, growing. And I think by the end of the week, I think we did okay.
We did all right. Yeah. And we had Robin Lang at the end as well.
Yeah. I'm an educator, so I'm an early years lecturer. So I'm always talking about methods of learning. And the fact that what you're talking about is like proactive, hands-on, visual, practical. Yeah. For a lot of us, that's really important. So if you're sowing a cycle, and when you are part of an experience and you feel it, and I think going on what you're telling me about your course, I mean, I haven't done it myself, but to go on your course, to feel the experience, smell it, to have a hands-on, to have that personal connection with somebody part of it, you remember it. And for many of us, we're very practical learners, we're very visual learners. So to go through that process is better than just having a textbook.
Yeah, absolutely.
And okay, so there is some incredible whiskey academies out there. I know they do a lot of work, but a lot of it is very textbook. And we always talk about whiskey being an experience. So why should the learning whiskey not be an experience as well? I think that's your counter argument, isn't it? If whiskey drinking is an experience, the knowledge should be an experience as well.
We want people to come away feeling more qualified to know what they want to go and drink and buy, and to be able to talk about it with their friends and share that.
Fabulous.
And that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for academics to go and become distillers or master blenders or anything like that. That's not
they can do that another route, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
But then that's quite a niche. That's quite a niche.
Yeah. We spoke to Edinburgh Whisky Academy about various things, and we wanted to reassure them that we are not treading on their toes. We're not an education. Yeah, I keep saying we're not an academic academy, if that makes sense. The guys aren't going to be sitting in the classroom and studying for us. It's all hands on. And I think I'm just looking at the chat coming up. So Kat, who works at Glengarry as well, has been very active just now. So Glengarry have just reinstated their malt florings, so we now have access to see the malting happen in real time, as it were, and it's only 5 minutes away from my house, which is great. And I'm going to have to say this because Kat will kill me if I don't. It's actually the oldest whiskey distillery in Scotland, I believe. Glentonik claim it.
Can I ask how much your course is, how long it takes? Can you tell me a little bit more details about it?
It's a 5 day.
You may have shared this before, but it's interesting to know. Yeah.
The first one we had was 4 days, but we're going to be doing 5 day regular and 1,300 for the week. That includes your accommodation and everything.
Yeah. Okay.
It's called the Highland Whisky Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's called the Highland Whisky.
The holiday.
Yeah.
And you get not only just learn textbook, it's like brilliant. So you're getting a hands-on experience with guides who know the area and have a passion for whiskey. And it's not a textbook exercise, it's actually getting into distilleries, seeing local distilleries, seeing the process. And it's really probably good for novice drinkers who love it, but don't really understand how it's kind of made. And maybe it's that hands-on experience to be going, you know what, I've seen it, I've seen people actually make it. And people are drinking it, it's part of an experience.
Yeah, I mean, everyone who was on it, apart from, so we had a chap, Paul McLaughlin, who you might know as the Whiskey Doc. He's got his own Twitter and Facebook and things. He's Canadian, and he's a dentist to trade. So he is qualified to call himself the Whiskey
Doc. Trade, whiskey drinker by night.
Yeah, pretty much. He came over and did our talk on the olfactory and gustatory, so how we sense our smell and our taste and how that's all interlinked. He ended up coming on the course. So Paul's an old friend of mine from previous. We did Springbank together, did Edinburgh and Islay together. So he came over and actually just took part. So his kind of part payment for coming over was to take part in the academy. So we had that really, really geeky side of guest graduate client. I'm not sure what we can call. And then on the other hand, we had
Graduate,
Callum
I'd
from
say. Yeah, somebody who's gone through
graduate.
system.
So Callum from Blether and Bannocks, who's watching tonight, he's popped up with a few comments. Is a tour guide in the area, and he wanted to learn more about whiskey, so he could talk to, he can build up his own repertoire and his own knowledge, because people are asking him questions and he didn't know the answer. So he thought, well, let's get to know you guys, and so his tours are kind of all about food, and kind of outdoor activities, clay pigeon shooting, paddle boarding, mountain biking, these kind of things, and adding into
Very outdoor, very Scottish. Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. And then the other guys were drinkers. They just like to drink whiskey, and so we had a small group for us first group.
Broad range. Yeah.
Broad range, absolutely. That was a very Scottish sounding broad. You really rolled your R there.
Today, one of my students said to me, Hayley, why do you always say a brr, like a BR? Brr? I was like, I don't know. I just can't. It's like innate. It's really, but it's straight to the English book. But okay, it's breakfast time or brunch or whatever I do. But it's something that I have a habit of. I'm really sorry. That's like my grandmother's Scottish side. It must like have something inside.
I think it must be, yeah.
It's,
So my wife's from Stafford. She can't roll her R's.
Oh really? Oh, I can roll. I can definitely roll my R's. Yeah.
So the academy is called
really
the Highland.
Yeah.
So the academy is called the Highland Whisky Academy, Hayley. So there is a webpage, and all the details are kind of on there. We also need to update all that because we need to now share the experience of this first one, which was awesome to say the least. The only serious question that we asked, there was a fun quiz. We also we're going to do a fun quiz at the end of the week, and that was at our kind of barbecue at the end. And the only serious question was whether I was a better driver than Mike, and that was an easy.
Hang on a minute. Did you give them whiskey before they did the quiz?
Well, listen, can we just put it this way? We have a series of whiskies in the shop called Stone Circle, because there's a lot of Pictish sort of ancient kind of artifact in the area in Aberdeenshire. It's one of the thing. Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And one of the bottles was named after a particular stone circle that we passed on the day that Mike was driving. And Mike said, if anybody remembers, we passed that one today. And I said, well, but that would have been if you'd actually been going slow enough for anybody to have actually seen it. Because one of the guys who was sitting in the back seat did say that it was the only day that his backside left the seat twice.
Do you know what? But that's that kind of, I hate the word banter, but it's that relationship when you guys are obviously very close and you bounce off each other. And I think you talked about members of your staff. You bounce off each other. And that is an energy you actually want. And earlier on, I had my hand up because I've never, ever walked into a whiskey shop, ever in my life. I've only made purchases online through recommendations and samples. And you were earlier on talking about the experience of going inside a shop. And even 3 years into my experience, and I can openly say this, I don't know, with a female or with a still feeling a little bit insecure, I don't go into shops. So it's really interesting that watching your relationship and watching how you bounce off each other and where you talk about your staff is actually a real testament to actually the whole shop itself and actually the relationship you have with your customers. I think it's incredibly important. It's hard to get that message out there on very many, and it's hard. How do you put that into branding or marketing? But actually just having this conversation with you and the way you bounce with each other is really, really important. And I think it's, for an outsider, it makes your shop instantly feel very, very welcoming.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. I think, it's when we opened the shop, just coming up for 7 years, I had no idea what to expect. I loved whiskey and I wanted to make that my job. And it has its I dare say,
ups and downs.
If you said to me 7 years ago you'd still be here and we'd be doing what we do now, I wouldn't have believed it, doing because the tours in the academy and tastings and all that kind of thing is, but over and above, and I suppose everyone will say this, but it is genuine. It's the people you meet, whether it's somebody coming at the shop to buy a bottle for themselves or for the birthday, or whether it's somebody like yourself who we're meeting online, or it's Billy Walker or Rachel Barry. Everyone talks to you in the same way, and I think it's important. It's very grounded kind of way. You touched on it earlier on with Ronnie Cox, who he actually hosted the first ever official whiskey tasting I went to up at Old Meldrum House, and it was Ronnie Cox. We hadn't opened the shop then; we were kind of building up to it, and absolutely. I didn't gauge the measure of how important he was at the time. I was still kind of just finding my way on that side of the industry, and I dare say,
which can be a good
helped
thing.
Me.
I actually think that's one of the best things about the industry, because you meet people, you spend time with them, and you speak away with them, blah blah blah, and then you go away, and then you think, well, I'm not sure who they were, and you Google them, and you're like, Jesus Christ, they're actually really big.
Russell last week, Russell hosted a tasting last week, and one of his tasters was Oliver Chilton from Single Malt Scotland.
Whiskey royalty.
Yeah. I had no idea. You just walk into a tasting and but yes, and fantastic.
But it's always so welcoming, isn't it? Whiskey doesn't ever feel that you're not welcome there. People welcome it. But I think if you're not part of, or you haven't joined it yet, it looks intimidating. But actually, once you make that, so you cross the threshold to a virtual tasting or an online tasting or a shop or connections, once you cross that threshold, it is the most incredible community I've ever known. And I'm so incredibly proud to the core to be part of it. But from the outside, it's still intimidating. And I think it's our job to make that less intimidating. I always think there has to be an air and grace of the whiskey. And I think I want that side of pretentiousness, because it's such a process that is special, it is unique, and it's an experience that should be treasured. But you don't want the negative pretentiousness of that nobody could join. So I think there's a real balance. It's like a seesaw effect on whiskey. We want it to be welcoming to all. We want them to come and join us, but we don't want people that are not going to appreciate it. Because as you said earlier, your academy is about appreciating every level of how that process evolves, from the farmers, or even from the farm hands who are mowing, who are sorting out the soil. There is a layer of every level that goes through, it's got the terrain and the barley, or however it works. There's each level is such a respect, because it actually affects the taste, and then it affects the consumer and our experience. And we want people to come in and enjoy that, but appreciate it without that pretentiousness. And I think that's actually the debate. Forget about women in whiskey. Let's look at the fact that we want people to experience it, but always love it, and always have a respect because of the process, because it's a long process. It's not a quick thing, as we know. It's a long process. So love it, enjoy it, and respect it.
Definitely. And as well as, it kind of touch on that process and that pretentiousness and all that. I think there is things happening now that's breaking down barriers. There's a lot of guys looking at Tomatin and Glenfiddich, and these guys are really looking at whiskey cocktails and pushing cocktails. And I think generally we hold the Whiskey Ambassador course as well. We had about 3 weeks ago, we did a course and talking about whiskey cocktails, and kind of the conversation came up that if you're making cocktails with whiskey, why don't you just use a grouse or something cheap? So, but say that a chef,
cheap,
if you're
or blend.
If you're just mixing it, why use expensive stuff? And it's like, well, say that to a chef. Why don't you just use a stewed steak for your steak pie instead of an Aberdeenshire Angus or something like that? Because it tastes better. If you want to make a mediocre cocktail, buy a mediocre whiskey. If you want a great cocktail, it's getting that malt whiskey, which is kind of, you know, the premium version of whiskey, can be mixed. It can be abused and
But I get that idea. If
manipulated.
you're spending £80 on a whiskey, I get that fear, that personal fear. Do you know what? My budget is X amount. I've then spent this amount on a whiskey that's incredible. I don't want to put ginger ale in it, even though it may taste incredible, and you may sit outside in your garden and enjoy that. But every moment, there's this inner thing that's like, oh, I spent so much money on that. I shouldn't do this.
Yeah,
I think that's a personal barrier. It's not, you can't teach people that. That's a personal barrier. I mean, I would much rather for brand. I don't like whiskey cocktails. I hate whiskey sours. I'm just not. It's not my old fashions. It's not my taste buds. But I have a brandy and ginger ale. I love it.
Mhm.
But I do understand that idea. When you spend so much money, you don't want to mix it. But as you said, there is a new experience to learn from it. But we have to educate. But we have to be open to the idea of doing that.
Yeah.
And like, as you said, just like taste, it's perspective, and it's personal, and it's subjective. It's whether you actually want to do that or not. And it's a respect of, I get it if you don't want to do it, but actually, come on, you're going to really thoroughly enjoy it, and it's been a great evening. Yeah.
I think it's maybe less about saying to people if you don't want to do it. It's more about not giving people a hard time if they do it.
Yeah. Exactly. And not everyone can afford an £80 bottle of whiskey. You know, it might be that £20 is their budget.
The pretentiousness and the kind of the kind of level of education in whiskey drinking, and it is, you know, there is a kind of divide there, because the majority of people, I mean, Scotland's a nation of drinkers, unfortunately, and most people who drink in Scotland drink to get drunk, and they do it in the most cheapest manner possible, and that's the truth. And I've been there as well. If I want to get hammered, I'm going to go out and buy the cheapest beer, whatever, and I'm not going to be sitting drinking single malts.
It's changing though.
It is changing.
Younger people is changing.
So our attitude is to drink less, but drink better. Is our motto. That's the way that we kind of sell the alcohol. But it's difficult for a generation of people who just want to go out and get smashed on a Friday night with their mates to say, why don't you sit down and have a few single malts and enjoy it and appreciate it? Because they don't want to do that. They just want to go out and get hammered. So there's a kind of whole education.
The hangover is better as well.
Absolutely.
There's a whole education of the culture.
I think, as much as I kind of don't like the way they sometimes do things, but you've got to look at guys like Brewdog or kind of these craft beers. The craft industry is really making people sit down, and the price of these kind of 8% lager or whatever it is that you're putting out, you're not going to go and scull that in a 15 minutes like you would a pint of 10. And that attitude, people want to be seen to be drinking these brands, but they don't want to spend £8 every pint. So they will sit down and they'll nurture it and enjoy it. And I think that kind of culture is coming through, especially with younger people. Our new generation of drinkers, as it were, are coming in, and they're taking their time over their drinks. They want to be seen to be drinking something a bit classier, something with a bit of style, whether it's a bottle or whether it's the mixer, the cocktail, the beer, whatever it is. People want to be seen to be drinking trendy, and that is helping, because they can't afford to spend a fortune on.
That's why it's okay to ask for water in your whiskey. I know that if I go, I mean, as you were saying earlier about dates, like I've been out on dates and I've asked for whiskey, and my date was for gin, and they swap it round. And it's funny, it's a joke, it's hilarious. But I've asked for a glass of water so I can drink my water slowly and enjoy the whiskey. Because like you say, you want it to last half an hour. I don't want to pay £50 for a whiskey and then it'd be gone in 2 seconds, or my date's on like one gin.
So I've been doing all night. Absolutely.
So I think, and for that reason, it's okay to ask for £8 whiskey at the bar and put water in it or ice. Because you want it to last longer. I still want to have the drink that I want, maybe a weekend down. But as you said, you want to have a good drink that does last longer. And unfortunately, whiskey's amazing, but it's so tiny. It's like 3 sips and I'm done. If you're paying for a bar for an evening, cost effective, that doesn't work.
I was at the Isla Academy in 2017, I think it was. And there's one of the farmers who was kind of the pioneering farmer for Bruichladdich in their terroir, the Isla barley, a chap called Hunter Jackson. And we were sitting in one of the houses. So Paul, who I was speaking about earlier on, me and him were sharing the house, and inevitably everyone came back to our house for a drink after the academy. So we were sitting, and Hunter was with us, and we were drinking this one of his casks that we really good brick laddie, and he poured quite a large draught, and then he poured quite a lot of water into it. So he's his dram was quite full, but a lot of it water. And one of the ladies who were on the academy kind of leaned over and asked him, "Are you still there, Haley?" Well, that was a really interesting story for her.
That's great. You've got people all the time, Mike.
I know.
I've learned how to zone out when you go on these. I was like,
yeah. We still have 11 people watching this, so we haven't bored them all.
I think she's going to come back in. She was changing in between
devices.
So the battery may well have gone.
So for those watching, if she comes back in, I will continue the riveting and very enjoyable story.
You can't finish a story without Haley.
Yeah. Her battery maybe died or something, but
to be honest, Matthew, it's not that great a story. I wouldn't be.
It's an amazing story. It's a brilliant story. Just as a side, the cask that he bottled, he named after his late wife, Carol Ann's cask, which was and that itself had a poignancy to be sitting drinking this guy's whiskey made from his barley. Is he coming back on?
Oh, here she goes. Yep.
Hello.
I was like, oh no, what did I do? I'm so sorry.
That was a fantastic story in this there as well.
Yeah, but they've just finished it.
It's the best bit of the whole evening. No. I was like, I was doing something in the chat, and then I was like, trying to get anyway. I was like, oh, sorry, guys. Okay,
it's all right. Maybe just thought that I have that effect on our guests when I start telling the story. They just leave.
All I heard was, "Are you?" And I was like, "Oh shit, I've lost them."
So we were in the room. We were drinking. So whiskey made from Hunter's barley, his own barley. And I was just saying to Russell to fill in the time. So you came back to us that that in itself was quite poignant, quite romantic in a way, that you're drinking this whiskey that and Hunter had grown this barley, and you're now drinking it with him. So he had his large dram and a lot of whiskey, a lot of water, and then one of the ladies kind of leaned over and she said, "So why do you put that amount of water into your whiskey? Do you feel it opens it up? Does it bring more flavor? Does it bring different notes to it?" And Hunter, he just kind of leaned back and he says, "No, it just lasts longer."
Oh, I love that man. What a legend, isn't it? It's true though. But you feel that putting water in it. Okay, we talked about earlier on about the different sex. I'm very aware of how I portray myself. So if I'm in, like I say, whiskey bar, I'm going to go neat. When I like it, I'm definitely not going to add water, because instantly they're like, "Oh, a woman, she's adding water." I'm always more aware of what I'm doing, more probably so than you are. But as the idea of putting water in it, it is so it lasts longer. It's not because I want to water it down or destroy the flavors with so much water. It's because, like you say, you want to enjoy it a bit longer, and I think it's okay to do that. And as I said to you very, very early in our conversation, I added so much water to slowly entice my flavor buds into liking whiskey. I started with lots of water and I reduced it down very, very slowly to entice myself into it. But that's where I think the line is, where you don't have those problems that we probably do about how we're portrayed very, very quickly.
I think it's important.
But it's okay to add lice. Who cares?
You can put anything you want. If you buy your whiskey, you can put anything you want into it.
If it's your whiskey, who cares? Exactly.
Russell's kind of touched on it a couple of times tonight. Is even if it's not what you would do, but don't berate the person for doing it. Just ignore it, and that is the important thing about it.
How many people? Sorry. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, and that was it. That's the important thing. That if it's not what you do, it doesn't mean it's wrong. And people are so vocal about it.
How many people have a whiskey what's too strong for them, but drink it because it's what they seem to meant to be doing.
Yeah.
How many people
Absolutely.
sit there?
Ridiculous.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh.
Mhm.
Enjoying it.
Yeah.
So I think rather than the male-female thing, it's more about change the perspective of drinking it how the hell you want, whatever you want, as long as you're enjoying the drink. Who bloody cares? That's the argument, and that's what our societal perspective should be, like our priority. Forget the sexual thing. It should more be about who cares? Enjoy it, drink it. The brands, we're drinking more whiskey than we've ever been drinking before. We have more opportunities, like as you said earlier, about trying whiskeys from around the world. We can use cocktails. I mean, there's so many out there. There's things we can try at home as opposed to just being in a bar. Who cares? As long as we're putting our marketing back, our funds back into the companies and the market. I don't care. I really don't care. And you talked earlier about your academies about opening up to people who want to drink whiskey. I'm a female, so I'm opening up to females. Whatever, as long as the market is blooming, the whiskey industry is doing incredibly well, and more people than ever are drinking whiskey, I feel like our job is done.
I think as well it's important to kind of mention that the guys who are making the whiskey, your Billies and your Rachels and your Jim McEwens or whoever it is, Ronnie Cox, when they're tasting the whiskey to go into the bottle, they're tasting it about 20%. They're nosing it very diluted, and that gives them the best sense of smell. The best. So, and I think that is also a message that we need to get out to people, that the professionals don't drink it at cask strength. They drink it.
And the professionals still read their notes.
Yeah.
When we think, okay, when we're at a tasting, we're like, I get this melon, and I get that, and you were kind of grasping for smells or scents or flavors because we think that's what everyone else wants us to hear, or we want to match the brand ambassador or wherever we are. But the professionals still write notes on their own over a period of time that they do not remember. Whenever I've been around a professional or a master distiller, they will always read from their bottle. I got this, and this.
Yeah.
Or they read from their private notes. They never remember from memory. And I think that's really important, because I felt this, even probably now, that you, as a pressure, because I want to be the professional, so I want to be able to add other people. Yes, I'm walking through a meadow, and I the grass is under my feet. I'm this, and you have this idea of how you should act. So you do this because you feel that's part of the character of being a whiskey taster. But the actual people that are writing these notes have done this over a period of time on their own, developed these notes, published them. They don't remember them, they feel on their own. And I think we forget that, or we don't know that, and we feel pressure to act up to them. And that takes away the whole experience of just having a dram, loving it. What that means to you.
Yeah. And that's the bottom line, is it?
Jim McEwen always tells a story of the massive tasting that he was at, and you might have heard the story yourself, Haley, where he was under a bit of pressure to be able to identify certain whiskies, and these people were like, I bet you can't do it, and blah blah blah. So they went and got these 3 whiskies, and Jim's I need to go to the toilet. Jim didn't go to the toilet. He went to the bar, gave the barman 20 quid, and said, "What were those 3 drams that you poured?" So the barman told him what they were. So of course he came back and played the game. And said, this is definitely, I think it's probably a Balvenie. I would say it's,
I know what this is.
Yes, I think it's probably a 12. He paid, and they thought, oh my God, he's a god because he knows what these whiskies are. He had no idea. He paid the barman to tell him what they were.
But he went down to the, it smells, I get a note
and that's the story.
Of rashiness from it, that so that signifies it was in the summer edition. So I'd imagine this was bottled between such and such a date, and the guys were like, to the barman, can we get the bottle? They were looking, it was the distillation date was exactly spot on.
Of course, But what Mike was saying earlier about the process, you have to have a certain jam, a certain period in the process. If you're trying X amount, you're going to have this taste, because your palate changes. So, but the way it's presented to us as consumers, it makes us feel like the professionals would know it instantly. No matter if they've had 8 drams in the evening, we are conceived to think they would know it. And that makes us inferior to them. And actually, that's not the case. And I feel like
we do two things.
We see that more.
Yeah, we think we're inferior to them, but we also sometimes hold them in too high a pedestal. And these are only ordinary people doing their job that we get to experience and we get to share. So we're very, very fortunate. We've managed to push the 2-hour barrier. That's a good debut. That's a good debut, Haley.
Raise our glasses. I feel like I've achieved something. Yeah,
Absolutely.
guys.
We'll have to have a club. We'll remember
the 2-hour club.
What was it? Top Gun had the. Did you ever watch the Top Gun when they did the lap time? Who was the?
I think you probably do. I think we'll.
So Top Gun,
Haley
not
made
Top
it
Gun,
pass.
Top Gear.
I want that badge.
Top Gear, not Top Gun. Top Gear had
Top Gun and Top Gear. It was a bit of a
They
difference.
have more followers than us.
I know, yeah. But they had a lap time, and the best lap time they had.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We're going to have to do that with it.
Get a leaderboard.
Get a leaderboard.
Yeah.
But Mike, tell me, is there anyone actually listening to this now? I feel like we've been rambling on our
Yeah, we've still got a handful of people on.
Yeah. We've still got a few.
Make yourself known, guys. Who's still on? Make yourself known.
Who's there? Ask me a question.
I think
Don't be shy. You're still there, so you want to say something.
There's no way people are there still listening.
We've got
Gamic's contract.
That's Kat's husband.
Oh, cool.
Alan.
Okay. Kat said she was busy with the children.
Kat's desperate to meet you guys, so you have to come up.
I think Kat followed me this week, and I was like, I recognise that name. Like, I now I can go and follow her and know who she is. That's nice.
Well, she's changed her name to the Distillery Cat,
I love it.
Which wasn't quite what Mike said she was that day.
Come up in August.
Which wasn't quite what Mike said she was that day, but she picked it up as Distillery Cat, and that seemed to fit quite well. So
and it worked.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We're glad she misheard.
That's the reason I went for RedWhiskyGirl. I mean, you don't pick anything really like scientific. It's quite basic.
We have a musician who plays in Every quite often, and her band name is C Red. I was like, why are you called C Red? And she's got hair same color as yours, so she has a red guitar. And she goes, well, what do you see when you look at me? And I see red. Oh yeah, that works. It's not rocket science.
I mean, that is, I see.
Right, so we've got a few people still listening. We've got Tobias is asking if you're going to be in Campbellton or Isla for the festival this year.
Nine.
Nope. That's an easy answer.
I mentioned previously that I'm drinking my bottles. So for the second time in 12 months, I am moving internationally. So I was living in Frankfurt for nearly 3 years. I came back to the UK post-COVID, thinking that I would see my family more, be closer to home. I don't like it. It's not for me. So I'm moving back to Berlin any day now. I'm waiting for my passport and my visa from the embassy, and I'm moving back to Berlin. So I will be moving back abroad. So, and that's really hard as a whiskey drinker because I have to transport a small collection, which I have to pay taxes on, and move back to Germany. So I won't be in Campbellton, but I will be I might be at the Somerton Whisky Club Festival in May, but definitely the Whisky Show in September, October. I will be there at Tory because we're doing some promotions, some content, especially for the internet.
And you're coming to Inverurie in August, so that's great.
And I'm in Edinburgh the whole of August. So anybody who's in Edinburgh or whereabouts, hit me up. Let's meet on a Sunday or Saturday, even daytime, and I'll be there.
You might need a short day trip to Inverurie to Edinburgh.
Because I am with the cast members. I run the cast bar. You can imagine my stories at 5 o'clock in the morning with the military police. Because all the problems that go on. There is so many issues, but it's my best job I've ever had in my life.
Annette's going to be your friend as well, I can sense.
A Whisky Fringe. Let me know when the Whisky Fringe, if you get tickets, and I will be there as well.
Oh, yeah.
I'm hoping you guys will be there.
It's one thing we don't really get the chance to do much is go to festivals.
Yeah, because of
we
where we
really
are.
need
I
to
guess.
remedy that. I know. We
We're
need to
not, we're,
remedy
not,
that.
we're not on Speyside, so we don't get invited to Speyside, and we should start our own one. I've said
Start
it to
our
me
own one.
before. We should start our own
Yeah.
Inverurie Whisky Festival.
Do so.
Well, my
And,
aim is to
Tobias-
come up to you guys sometime in the August holidays. I'll get up there for a day.
Yeah.
I might bring people with me, but that would definitely, we'll meet up together. That'd be great, amazing.
Tobias,
Probably
who I met-
Germanized. 999. Das
Yeah,
ist
so-
nicht.
I don't know if you know Tobias. He's
Ich
I
bin
met
ein
him at
Niederländer.
He-
Yeah.
he's a German. So
Mein
he's made his
Deutsch
day.
ist nicht gut.
Who else have we got? So we had Ian just asked, Ian Bruce, who's watching, have you got a favourite indie bottler or craft distillery for what they're trying?
I mean, I am obviously, we talked earlier about Berry Bros, and I love them. I don't have collections, and I'm very much from a perspective of I don't have the money to buy bottles. And I found that quite intimidating when I started, because you should have money and you should go to auctions and you should have collections. I don't have that facility to do that. And so I'm very much a champion for the idea of accessible whiskies that you can afford to buy and drink, whiskies that you can afford to try and enjoy, which I actually feel is quite a limited area. There's not many people that do that in social media. It's very much like, I have this X amount, this bottle, this worth this amount from an auction, like my picture. But that's not reality, because many of us people aren't, that's not accessible to us. So as we said earlier about Jameson's is a brand, it's worldwide, it's cheap, but actually Black Barrel is one of my favorite whiskies. I will buy a bottle, drink it regularly, and finish the bottle and replace it. And a lot of whiskies I cannot afford to do that to. So I know that Tori earlier on talked about Fetacan. She's a massive fan. She buys bottles. I can't afford that. I'm a teacher, single person. I live in expenses, and I'm very much a champion of buying accessible whiskies that you can enjoy and replace on a basic salary. And I think in the market, there's not many of us that do that. I know I speak properly. I speak better probably than I can afford to buy whiskies, but it's true. And I think there's a market that I kind of aim to do that for. So I will buy a whiskey that I can afford to replace, especially one that I enjoy. So I love Jameson Triple, the Triple. This is a airport exclusive. It's a litre bottle, €30. It's one of the best whiskies I've ever tried. I love it. Amazing. Black Barrel, I love. Things that I can, I think my latest whiskey buy was the Wolfburn Ukraine charity bottle. Because I'd rather spend £50 on that than I would go and chasing a cool range that anyone could buy. Because that's how and that's like personal perspective, isn't it? That's what we do have your money towards.
There's certainly that
so I'm very
kind of fear of
I know
missing
I come
out.
across a little bit more well-spoken, but actually budget-wise, I'm much more an accessible person who wants to buy whiskey everyone can enjoy. And I'm not a collector. I don't have a brand that I would continually buy.
That's kind of the big thing just now. It's been going on for a couple of years. I think it's increased during the COVID, is that fear of missing out, that luxury bottles that people must have and chase after, and
special releases.
And I know, Russell, you've kind of really taken a step back from that, chasing that, and you think, well,
Just not going to have it. I'd rather go down to the co-op and buy a bottle of Glen Grant for £22.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
drink
one that you know you're going to get again. You can go back and buy the same thing.
Absolutely. But there is a fear of missing out. But, no matter what your budget is, there's always an FMO. It's an FOMO. Like, even though I spend £50 on a bottle, I'm always like, oh my God, so and so, like Tori's buying this or Mo is buying. I'm always, should I have that bottle? Is that what everyone else should be chasing? That doesn't leave me. And I'm always regretful that I can't afford to set my alarm and do that chase. I want to have that budget, but I don't. And I think it's that admittance going, do you know what? I like whiskey. I love the process. I really enjoy it. but I am an accessible person, and that is okay in its own right. And I think that statement makes whiskey broader to a wider population, transferable to a wider population than this idea of being a collector.
Yeah.
And I
my biggest problem.
It's an experience. Whether that experience is £30, £60, £120, that's okay. Just enjoy it. And I'd rather
enjoy it and share it with friends. You know.
Yeah.
My biggest problem with bottles like that you can never buy again is I end up like this. I've got like so many bottles that I know I'm not going to get again.
You don't finish
so
it.
I don't finish them. And it's like when I get to that stage, it's like I know by finishing this bottle, that's it. What else have I got? Yeah, most of them are Glenallachie, to be honest.
Recycling bin. Yeah.
Yeah, I have this fear of finishing it because once it's gone, that's it.
But you see this marketing, like and obviously I'm from a social media aspect, so I'm coming from that area. But I do see posts. I'm like, oh, that looks so amazing, and I read the notes, and I'm like, sold. I can't afford to pay £100 a bottle. That's not my monthly budget. I'm a single person. I'm a teacher. That's not my budget. So if I'm going to have a budget, it's going to be an accessible price that I can afford to drink it. I have a few collector's bottles that are, my collection's like 30 bottles, and like I can see even behind you, Russell, that's vast number, less than what you have.
Most of
them are drinkers.
For me, I'm an advocate for having
some of them are empty.
A collection that you can afford, and a collection that's accessible to your criteria, and not have that fear of I have to catch up, because that ruins the experience.
I'm trying to think.
And I'm huge on that. That's who I am. That's who I am. Yeah.
It's important as well. That's because people get so caught up in this fear of missing out, and they get so annoyed with themselves that drives them to then go to auctions and pay hundreds of pounds over the odds for it.
I've been to an auction. Have you been to an auction? Have you bought bottles?
I've never auctioned. No.
I've been to auctions of old stock, like hotel closures and things like that, where there happened to be whiskey there, but I've never went to a whiskey specific auction. But people got to remember there'll be other bottles out there. There'll be another release coming just round the corner from a different distillery, and it'll taste very similar to whatever you've missed out on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more. And I think if you get yourself fixated with a brand you like, you will want to buy every release, every special edition. Yeah. Then you're caught into this, you're caught into the web, which is what they want you to do. You're losing the impact of the experience of why you got into whiskey in the first place. And that's this line of becoming a buyer, it's like a customer, as opposed to being someone who's enjoying it. And if you can have that moment of going, oh shit, I'm just buying this because of a brand, then you're part of an awakening. Yeah, maybe not good for the brand itself, but it's good for you. And I think as a general, as we talk about experience of whiskies worldwide, if you can come out of this fixation of going, I love Glendronach, I'm going to buy every edition, every release, I'm a massive fan, I'm going to go into auction sites and buy the things I can't buy, you're then missing out on an experience of trying other whiskies. And then that, to me personally, destroys the idea of being a whiskey drinker, because then actually you're just a Glendronach drinker. You're not going, I'm here for the experience of trying all experiences. You're there for just one experience. But again, maybe that's down to cost, maybe that's down to fixation, maybe it's a personality thing, but that awareness.
I think when you take that step back, you take that step back from the brand, and you realise. Yeah. So I was recently, about a year ago, Russell introduced me to Glencadam, and I love Glencadam now. I think it's
we all do. It's incredible.
It's incredible. Yeah. Where has it been all my life? But that is from having a chat with Russell, and it's like, well, you're missing out. For Springbank just now isn't producing the amount of whiskey that they used to be able to, due to a number of factors. So now even their core range, as soon as it's in the shop, it's gone. So people are now
But the
looking
fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
it's opened.
I didn't have swing back 3 years ago, and I should have done. Now it's like, oh my god, it's selling out. I know it's in auctions. I have this inner feeling of fear of missing out, and I want to pay over the RRP to get a bottle because I'm in this cycle of like, oh, I need to have this. And also as an influencer or a social media aspect, I want to have that bottle to present that I'm there. Therefore, I'd pay over the RRP.
Yeah.
And then you're sucked into the cycle, aren't you? Because I'm presented with the idea, as you said, that it is worth that. But actually, we're in this cyclone effect of being buyers, consumers.
But you just have to take a step back, and you've just got to forget.
I
mean, I'm not going to put down Springbank in any way whatsoever. But from a purchasing point of view, I think there's two other whiskies out there that are, from my point of view, more affordable and better. I kind of sometimes hesitate to talk about them too much because people start buying them all. But the current Kubokan range from Tomatin is, in my mind, is a far better whiskey, and I think Glen Scotia knocks Springbank out of the park every single time. So yeah, for me, they're both better and both affordable, and you're not having to chase them. But if that happens with them, if people start kind of flipping Kubokans all over the place, whatever, well, I'll move on to Ben Romich, or there's going to be something else out there. You just got to move on. As soon as somebody starts flipping it goes somewhere else, and that's, they're not going to be able to flip. They're not going to be able to flip everything,
Yeah, I think that a lot of that is where Springbank has found itself, because I love Springbank, and having been in the school, I kind of fell in love with the whole idea that the ethos of the business, but it kind of started.
For a second, guys. I'm just going to duck out for a second.
It started with that Macallan kind of. Everyone wanted Macallan. Can't get Macallan. It's too expensive, and they're kind of going up. What else can we get? Okay, Springbank has this releases that are very limited. Let's go for that. But I think there's cycles. Ardbeg have had it. Balvenie have had it. Springbank seems to be the one at the moment. Glenallachie's certain releases there going through that just now. And I think there is just cycles where there's the trendy.
Right, absolutely. It's always a trend, isn't it, to follow?
Yeah.
But even I think Glendronach became a bit of a trend like a year ago even. I know that obviously they've changed their chill filter and they've had like different dynamics that have affected their like consumers, but we do follow a trend that we're on the path to. Like, I don't want to be someone that follows, but we do, because we're part of the community. Therefore, we do follow to an X amount. I'm sad about Springbank becoming this royalty. That makes me kind of sad, because it was always, I kind of respected it. There was something about that I respected about the release. And I'm kind of sad that it's become inaccessible.
I think for me, it's not something that they've pushed. They haven't actively gone out and said, this is where we want to be. They've found themselves there because they had to restrict their staff, because everything 100% on site and all that. They had to restrict how many people were there, how many people were able to do the bottling. So that restricted what they were doing. And they can only produce so much under that. So they were kind of stuck. And I think it was it 2 years, maybe not quite 2 years ago, the local barley was a sherry, and it came out really dark. And that was the first time I'd seen Springbank go like that, and an auction being like 10 times the RRP. But that just creates a fever. And I feel for them, because they haven't kind of branded themselves different to some of the other companies who are actively looking to fit that mold.
Do you like Macallan? Are you a Macallan fan? Come on, Mike.
I don't dislike Macallan. I think there are better value whiskies out there for the price you're paying. For a 12, for a 15, for an 18. You can buy something. If you're drinking whiskey, you can get better out there for the price that you're paying.
It's a weird thing to admit, but because of the persona, because of the stereotype of Macallan. I've never ever gone near it. I think I tried a Macallan 12 once at the bar because I never had Macallan, and I wasn't like, this is amazing, so I didn't ever go back to it. Unfortunately, from my perspective, because they have this persona, it's not something that I've ever wanted to delve into. I've literally put a block between me and them and not gone any further, which is kind of sad for a brand, because I have very many followers and I have many friends who are huge Macallan fans, but they instantly put this stigma or this invisible barrier that made me not want to approach that idea of them. And I think Macallan has this fan base who either worships everything about them. They're literally like, they are the best thing in the world. Or you have the flip side of like, I don't touch Macallan. But
it's like Gucci. It's like a fashion. It's like a fashion brand.
Yeah.
It's like a fashion brand. It's like a Gucci handbag, or a Chanel perfume or something. Macallan is.
Yeah.
It's a name. It's not. Yeah. It's not what in the whiskey industry. It's not what we would actually look to go and drink.
But people will always pay. So people, like say, elite people who have no whiskey experience, so say, as they've tried a vast amount that they like, will always reach for that society, that high society, the elite idea of whiskey, which is Macallan. So that branding on that spec is incredible. Absolutely incredible. And there's nothing about them for the fact that they have that respect in that elite society. But it's also incredibly sad for people that, like you, who enjoy whiskey for more pure quality. Oh, Macallan missed that. They've lost out on real.
I think it's a deliberate.
Quality.
It's a deliberate.
But there's maybe something in industry for everybody. It's the same in every kind of like.
I like Tobias's comment there. The best dram at the end of Macallan was the new make.
Oh my god. There's so many brand ambassadors though, isn't there? Like Macallan is influencing the whole like society of like social media. They are everywhere, in every continent, in every city. There is a Macallan ambassador bar.
The problem for us, and I'm sure Matthew, who's been kind of chatting along with us as well, is he has an online shop, and they do tastings as well, not too far away from us, just up in the North Coast. Getting access as a small retailer to any Macallan, is nigh on impossible. Try to get a trade account with it. It's as you said, that barrier isn't invisible. It's maybe invisible for the consumer, but for a retailer, it's very, very clear.
But
you're not getting this stuff,
isn't it? If you look at like India, Norway, like other countries, I think in European countries, that barrier is less so. But I feel it's because they haven't got their own whiskey to sustain the interest. But Macallan hitting into the Scotch idea is a huge barrier, because Scotch is such a high quality in comparison to many Macallans. I'm saying very broadly. I don't want to be specific, but whereas in respect of you hitting to Norway or you hitting to Germany, Macallan is still seen as an elite.
Yeah. It's status. It's absolutely status. But that's that's the same in any line. In any line of work.
They're brilliant what they do, and I haven't tried enough to be able to have a complete opinion, but I know that personally I have this barrier to the idea of Macallan, which is quite unfortunate.
You need to pay about 80 quid for a bottle of 12-year-old Macallan, 40%. Why would you do that when you? Why would you do that when you can get a 15-year-old Glenallachie for 60?
And also
it's the same.
Concepts, they go on a ballot. You buy them. They're triple their value within a month of you having it.
I think we're just ranting now, aren't we? We're laying it all out there.
People that buy Macallan purely for the value as opposed to whiskey.
We have two people
gone, and it's not part of our interest.
Two types of people come into the shop to buy Macallan, and the one that we've all kind of talked about are the collectors. And a lot of people who I know who buy Macallan, they don't drink whiskey. They are buying it purely as they would buy a gold chain or I don't know, some collectible, a teapot or something like that. They put it on the shelf and they keep it, and it's never getting drunk. The other ones are your kind of old school drinkers who fell in love with a 10-year-old Macallan all those years ago, and they come in and they're looking to buy a present for their friend. Oh, he drinks Macallan. He likes a Macallan. And these are the guys who I feel for, because we can't get it anymore. And it's like, and you say, well, why don't you try a Glendronach 12-year-old or try a Tam Dew or a Glenfarclas? Oh no, they'll only drink a Macallan. Well, yeah, good luck.
Interesting that they won't open up to trying something new because it's not the brand that they visualize. I would say being.
People are also terrified of buying somebody a gift unless it's Macallan, because they'll feel that person hasn't bought them a proper gift.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I would say at least half of the people.
Johnny Walker, like if you don't have a Johnny Walker, you're nobody. You know, that comes down to like a cultural of this mindset, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You can't overcome that though in the shop. I don't think you can overcome that.
I just had my first Johnny Walker last year.
The green label, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a green label, yeah. I've never tried the black or the red yet.
I've never had a Johnny Walker.
Well done.
Ever.
Well done. I feel bad that I gave in.
I'm going to go to the Johnny Walker Experience on Princess Street in Edinburgh.
I've heard it's incredible.
The brand ambassador, and I'm going to immerse myself in that, because I do believe in opening the idea to Johnny Walker. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm very aware. I'm also very much like an Instagram and social media perspective that if you have a Johnny Walker, like a gold, like the ghost label or the blue label, you blow up because of what's available as an audience. And I know that that's there. But then, I'm not playing that game yet.
We have to acknowledge Johnny Walker's place in the industry, of course. But,
they're kings. There's no denying it. Absolutely denying. Yeah.
There's not a bar in the world that you won't find a Johnny Walker.
Buy it. Mm-hmm. And I haven't tried it. Does that mean it's not good? I just haven't tried it yet. There's hundreds of whiskies I haven't tried, thousands.
So the Johnny Walker green label is one of the more kind of sort of quality. Will step up. I wouldn't buy it again.
Okay.
I wouldn't buy it again. God, it certainly wasn't. It certainly wasn't worth, and it wasn't worth 50 quid.
Darling, I bought a black label for €30 in Germany, but do you know why I bought it? It came with merchandise. It came with one of those, like, what's it called? The spirit measures and a little ice picker. And I was like, I really want that. And I bought it. And I never ever opened the bottle.
So you literally bought the merchandise with a free bottle of Johnny Walker, really.
Well, I still have the merchandise. Shame.
Yeah.
But what did you do with the bottle if you haven't drank it yet? If you pass it on to somebody?
I have to say, Berry Bros the weekend, I was talking to, I can't remember his name, and I said to him, he's going to Jameson at the weekend. He's like, if you're going to Jameson, pick up some green hoodies. And he's like, but why? Why would I do that? Because I like it. He's like, right, I'm going to go to Jameson and say, I want a green hoodie because RedWhiskyGirl wants one. I was like, absolutely. I'm a sucker for merchandise. I'm really sorry. Like all brands watching will be like, okay, I know what to do now.
We need to get an Inverary whiskey shop sweatshirt.
I'm really sorry.
Amazing.
I'm really happy to learn a little bit more about your company though. I'm really happy to learn a little bit more about what you do as a shop, and the fact that you've evolved from just being a retailer to an academy to be having these like online sessions, like education, like sharing people's experiences. That like it goes beyond, I think, probably maybe what your mission was to begin with. Like you've definitely evolved. It's really exciting to actually be part of this and to see what you're doing. Because I actually hadn't heard of you before planning this evening. So
that's great. That's now that you have, which is great. That's kind of, It's not what the Blether is kind of about. What we set
It
the
was more
Blether.
about us getting to know you. No?
Yeah. We want to get to know you guys and let people who
I'm
know
not
us.
going to say blather.
Blather. Yeah. We won't dwell on that. She's not here to defend herself.
Yeah. Was that Tori that wrote that? Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh.
I thought she was just putting her English twist on it.
No,
Like I said-
earlier on you were like the blather, and I was like, oh, okay, I don't know who that is. Okay.
I think from tonight as well, we some of the comments we might have grounding for a wee whiskey festival in the area, maybe outside of Aberdeen. We might try and get the guys at Kinnaird, get Matthew involved in that and do
Absolutely.
something.
But as you
But,
said, your
another
area
spin
has
to the
no specific region, therefore there
No.
might be an opportunity to grow that idea, especially
Well, we're classed as Highland. But in between, we're almost in between us. There is a definitive line that is Speyside from the other part of Highland. You know. So yeah.
It's we're in a funny part of the world. I mean, like I say, I would love it if Aberdeenshire or northeast or something. We could get a region.
But surely your region could cover like the Northeast Islands as well.
Yeah.
Like
Maybe.
map-wise.
Orkney.
There's a direct link from
No,
Martin.
there's no whiskey from Shetland, is there? There's no Shetland whiskey.
Not yet.
No.
The Shetland Real, which they do
There's
a gin.
gin.
They've got a couple of blends out, but the whiskey will. It can't be far off.
Muckle Flugger's the
Hadn't heard
blend,
of
but
it,
it's not
so-
made yet.
Yeah.
Okay. But there will be then, obviously, an island to the east. Okay.
Yeah, Matthew's up for it.
I went to Shetland for the Pelly Eye like a couple of years
Oh,
ago,
yeah.
which is quite
Yeah,
a
yeah.
unique experience.
So I believe.
Up Hellier.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So if you watch the Vikings, it's like going to the Vikings with reality, and it's still seductive. I'm not gonna deny. There's still like an aspect of like dirty, hairy men, but there's also the reality of just being. Shetland is a very cold island. Reality check. I enjoyed it very much. So yeah, I have Shetland friends. Very much enjoyed it, but it's quite unique in its own identity.
Yeah, I think you're right. Cold, windy, no trees.
Oh, yeah, it's and very small.
Yes.
Like everyone knows each other. There's like no secrets.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Island identity.
Tobias has just said we've almost covered all the time till the V pub, so I think he's off to the pub now.
Is he off the V pub now? Is he?
Which is great.
I
We love to.
that I was ready for everything. It's worked very well.
We've absolutely loved it. It's been such
fantastic.
A chat. And
So many people still on as well.
Grown arms and legs, and we've had rants and we've had praises and we've had people joining in, and it's good to get that off the chest sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So can I ask, this StreamYard, is this put on Facebook? How has this worked on like media platforms?
So we're live at the moment on Facebook and our YouTube channel, but it saves, so we'll share it with you, and you can share it with your own.
Does that mean I have to watch it back, Mike? No.
No, you don't.
Edit that. It's not like a photo. You can't just delete a photo, I'm afraid.
Tori's going to watch this back and be like, oh, that's what happened in the last hour.
I know. She could probably rejoin us and sit and watch it. I bet she never thought she could come back and join in again.
She'll have her daughter back in bed. And
the first 19 minutes, though, my sound was so out, and I was like so lagged behind you that it was really difficult to be part of the conversation. But since Tori left,
I think maybe the four, and I noticed this a few times on.
had the Jim
watching other shows. When it gets to four people, it struggles. And I wonder if that's what it was.
Might be, because I was quite conscious because I didn't want to like overspeak, and I was very conscious. But also, when you're live, you want to be able to present your own personality. But I was very conscious of me being delayed.
You were very
and
polite.
So it was quite.
Yeah,
And I was like, teacher. I did that a lot. Yeah. But then I guess you like Mike and Russell, you must have some kind of signal, because when you're doing lives, you have to be able to communicate to each other from a different house, and that becomes a different skill as well.
Yeah, well, we know each other well enough to know when one of us is just kind of a way to say something nonsense and the other one's maybe got a point. We were able to be a little bit more forceful to talk over the top of the other when we know we've got something we have to say. So, and we tend to give way to each other when we do that.
I've got the control to just do this as well.
You forget so high.
On a Monday evening. Yeah,
he's giving me control as well.
She's never given you the password.
Alternative weekends. So one Monday she'll do it, the other Wednesday I'll do it, and therefore we have a control. But we also have like visual signals to be able to explain to each other. So when it's her presenting time, I'll let her talk and I sit back. Whereas when it's my time to show on my live, I present and then I wait for her to I give her moment. So you have like cues, don't you? Which is really important.
Okay. Well, we've been doing this, I don't know how many we've done, but we've never thought of a cue or some kind of structure. We've never had that. There is the private chat that we do. So we can give each other signals that way, I suppose. But I don't know if we've broken a record today. Have we 240, 241?
Yeah, no,
I'm going for it. Let's just keep going. Let's just hold Red Whiskey Girl is going to hold your title. I'm the girl.
It's going to be tomorrow morning. I need to go make some breakfast.
I know.
But I also know next week you'll be like, okay, this is tonight's live, but you have to beat Red Whiskey Girl. I feel like it's a challenge set to me. Never, ever going to lose a challenge, gentlemen.
So, I know. Well, who are we to stop you? Absolutely.
But is anyone listening? Because if no one's listening, this is just a private chat anyway. There's
still
Tobias has just left or leaving
Are they
to...
in the bath listening to us?
David's not here. He's in Malaga. He's in Malaga. Yeah.
He might be watching. I don't know. It's there's an hour difference.
He'd have commented.
Ian, Michael, Matthew, Tobias is just a way to head off. I think he's still commenting, so he's hanging on. I think he's still waiting.
He's reluctant to leave.
It's nice. It's nice to chat to people. It's nice to have a name to people that you maybe have seen without us having an association. So last week. So me and Tori do this every 2 weeks. Do open milk night. Well, the past month, the first Monday I had COVID and I was very, very sick. There's no way I was going to join in. So I didn't go to that one. And then the last week, this week was when I was at Very Bros. So I didn't go, and she had David from Translate magazine. Yeah. So I haven't been live for probably 6 weeks, which is quite interesting. But as probably you know, at the beginning of things, I never ever thought that I would do this. So actually, I've become used to being on the camera, and then I haven't been doing it for so long. But I'm very, very lucky with that. I have Tori that would just hold the pedestal for me, and obviously when she's away as well, that I can do it for her.
The worst thing about doing tastings, when I started in the shop, Hayley, it was primarily to do tours and tastings. And the first tastings I really did were all online. And I did them for literally 2 years. So it came as a bit of a shock that when I was going to have to do some in-house tastings, I was going to have to wear trousers and not shorts. And I couldn't wear my slippers. Yeah. Oh, sorry. No, the dog. Cozy.
It's his dog.
What happened?
His dog must have come up and said,
Come on in.
I've just had a comment from Ian Bruce saying he just learned about this yesterday after discovering Roy on No Nonsense Whiskey podcast. Do you follow?
Yeah,
the
no nonsense whiskey. Yeah, he does a very good YouTube channel.
So I don't know,
Who's this,
Ian.
Russell? How?
That's Posey.
Oh, she's on a scratch. We'll
Hi.
move that
Leave it a scratch in peace. We probably don't need to see that.
Sorry, what was nonsense whiskey? What was he saying?
That's him. Yeah. So Ian had just said he learned about this. So are you talking about the Blether, Ian? Or are you talking about what?
So
If we've got a mention on No Nonsense Whiskey, then I'm delighted.
Right.
So were you saying that Blether was Tory's spelling mistake?
I think it must be. But I did
was sharing that as well. I'm so sorry.
I did too, but I just took it as a nice thing. Not a lot of people know what a Blether is.
Blether?
So.
I didn't.
In terms of Scots, it's maybe been used before as a word for blether,
Okay.
haver.
Well, I like the introduction, like when you were like, okay, we're going to have two ladies on, and they're going to be non-brand specific, but really, really honest. And I was like, okay, yes, what I'm going to be. I didn't know how else to project myself.
Had to correct himself from saying that other guests weren't honest.
I know, I like this big. It's really good.
As you can see, there's no rehearsal for this at all.
No, but that's the best way. And also, the more you drink, the funnier it gets.
Or so we think.
That's what we think, yeah. We're not sure if the audience thinks
we don't think, but we listen to it back. Have you not noticed? So me and Tori publish our IGTVs that we're doing live and then publish it. We haven't done that for about 2 months because we keep getting drunk. It's really embarrassing. We just delete that option.
Yeah, there has been a couple of times.
I obviously know that, like, you guys or followers quite enjoy it, but you don't want to listen to it back.
Yeah. I very rarely, unless there's something specific that sticks out in my mind that I want to listen to again, I very rarely watch back.
Or
There has been a couple of times when we've been, so after the Blether, we kind of go offline and we sit and chat with the guests for a wee bit. And there's been a couple of times we've gotten into conversations that I've just mini panicked. I thought, are we still live? I really can't say that if we're live. So we'll hold off on that.
Absolutely.
The problem is that's what people want to see. That's actually the real stuff that people want to identify with. But you obviously have regulations and like things that you have to be very, very careful, especially language. But I think from a perspective of the community idea, they want to see this real side. They've done this perspective of what the potentials of whiskey. They're done with that. They want to see real people drinking whiskey in real time. But then we have
joked that we're going to have to start the Blether at 9 o'clock due to some of the language that comes out at like 2 minutes past.
Yes, indeed.
I think we've been very good.
We've been not too bad at all.
Yeah, I'm quite terrible.
Outstanding.
So today, actually, I know this is non-whiskey related. So as I said to you earlier, I'm moving to Berlin, and today is my last day with my students, and they're between 17 and 20, and it was so emotional. It was beautiful. It was so nice, and they're all following RedWhiskyGirl now, so they will know who I am.
Oh, great.
And they were like, "Is that you?" Because they associate me with being a teacher, and then suddenly they're like presented with this idea that I'm online as an alcoholic drinker. It's eye-opening, I have to tell you. It's so emotional, really.
What age group do you teach?
Well, I am an early years specialist, so I have early years teaching and a master's in early years education or pedagogy, which is 3 to 7 years. And I've been specialism in early years. Then I've come back to the UK and I've been doing lecturing, so I teach 16 to 20-year-olds, like early years education, so pedagogy and theory in practice. But the money's not very good. So I'm going. So the money's not very good, and I'm going back to Berlin to nanny because then I nanny for elite families and get paid more money. And
more fun.
It's hard because I'm an educator in babies, but my hobby and passion is alcohol, and it's actually quite hard for me to like decide between the two. I can't boast about either. I can't boast about. I can't go to my nanny and family. Okay, amazing. You have your multi-millionaires. I'm a whiskey influencer. I want to have whiskey in your bar. I can't do that because I look after their babies.
Yes.
And it's quite it's complicated. I have to say
it's two very different passions.
The fortunate thing is I travel a lot, therefore I get a lot of airport exclusives. I get to like move between the two. And when you're talking about your academy, I find education quite passionate. I'm quite passionate about the way you style, the way that you teach people. So that's probably why I get quite animated in what you were saying. But
I'm just thinking back. I'm just thinking back to my school days, Hayley, and I would have to say that all my teachers were drinkers. All my teachers were drinkers as well, but they definitely weren't influencers.
To be fair, Russell had to do his sums in an abacus when he was at school.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. They did still have them when I was a student. Yeah.
They added up all right, though, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was rubbing out on that slate that was your biggest problem.
They might be watching, they'll be watching my lives on Instagram, and it's really, really weird. But they're allowed to because they're 18, they're adults. It's just very, very bizarre. But I'm excited. The problem is, I moved back. I was living in Germany, and obviously before the Brexit, it was very, very easy to have alcohol, postage. Then Brexit happened, and it became an absolute dismay. There's never a word for it. It was just disgusting because nobody knew. Nobody actually knew how to put through a VAT or a tax thing through the system. Even like the post wasn't set up for, in January, there wasn't set up for this idea of putting through a VAT receipt. And I had deliveries from brands go missing. They just disappeared, never ever received them. It was an absolute dismay. And it's only because the systems were not set up for this. They were set up from Spain to France or however it worked. But because of Brexit, everything became very, very difficult. So I missed out on a lot of brand opportunities, missed out a lot of whiskey. So I came back to the UK, set up these relationships again, and now I'm moving back to Germany. The problem with being in Germany is I don't speak the language well enough to be able to represent a German community. Yeah, so I have connections to German whiskey distilleries. I have connection to groups. I can go to the Limburg Festival next month, but I don't have the real connections to be able to make a difference or be able to connect with brands, but I'm also further away from English brands. So I'm actually putting myself in quite a difficult position influencer-wise. I'm going to be very much on, I won't be getting gifts. I won't be getting samples. I'll be very much back to buy my own bottles, what I can get in Germany or on airport duty, and be able to present it myself. So I put myself in a difficult position, but it's also quite exciting to be part of Europe again because I really miss that. Yeah. I mean, you're Scots, you're very, very aware of how the situation's changed and the impact that's had. But I do find, I moved back to England and I had followers just like yourself or even brands going, I didn't realise you were English, Hayley. And like my profile for the last 3 years it said English lady, but they still assume because I live in Germany that I wasn't English speaking. So I do still have that impact of being, I hope that being in Germany will be able to open up Europe again. And I hope to have that connection between Europe and England. But yeah, it's going to have an impact on me personally as an influencer idea, definitely.
Sure.
It'll be very, very, very interesting speaking to you again once you're there and settled in.
Yeah.
We'll get you back on for another chat. But
tonight, Germany, yeah.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. We've smashed the record. We've smashed the record. You now hold the record, so you're top of the leaderboard. I'm gonna have to head off. I don't know what Mike's up to. But listen, I'm kind of in charge of sort of sourcing people for the Blether, and I was very, very keen to get both you and Tori on for a chat. So I'm so pleased that you agreed to do that, and I'm so pleased that you've been on, and we'll definitely get back in touch. We'll stay in touch anyway, and we'll hopefully see you up at the shop.
I'll see you in August.
Either we'll come down to you, or we can meet halfway or something. That would be great.
And
we were looking at getting Ronnie on next week. We had contact with Berry Brothers, but it was just before when we kind of did the calendar. It was just before he announced his retirement. So if you want to put in a good word to him,
Yeah, absolutely.
I will
That would
join.
be
I
amazing.
don't have to be
Your buddy.
a guest, but I'm happy to put a question in
Your-
through the live.
Your best friend.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
He's,
yeah.
he's a, I absolutely adore that gentleman. He's just the
Oh, he's amazing.
perfect person to represent. Yeah. There's nothing better than Bonnie. Yeah.
But so no,
Guys,
thank
I have
you.
to say that yeah, I didn't know what tonight was going to be. The fact that we've reached a record is just beyond me. I did warn you that I was ready for a drink. I warned.
Yes, I know. For not having a drink for a month, you've done remarkably well.
I was ready. Yeah. But also the fact that the conversation has just flowed really nicely, and the fact that there was no barriers to our conversation. I felt like actually it really flowed nicely. The fact that what you had to say, I had an impact to, and I had something to feed back to you, which is really important when you're having a conversation with people in the industry.
Yeah.
So it's been incredible. And I love your academy. So send me details. I'd love to get involved. And I'm really proud of what you're doing for your part of Scotland. And part of your campaign for the Aberdeenshire region.
Yeah, Whisky region. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
#.
Not an English person has any say in that.
Hey, you guys probably have more influence on it than we do. So,
so just hold on 2 seconds once we go off the live, Hayley. But we'll just say cheerio to all our guests that are watching tonight.
yes,
There's still 6 guys out there. Thank you
still
so
have
much for
people
being with
watching,
us.
which is great.
It's been a fabulous evening, and thanks again for joining in. Next week we do have Andy Taylor from Berry Brothers, and maybe Ronnie as well. You never know. Ronnie was hopefully going to come along as well, but we haven't quite confirmed that. But it's definitely going to be Andy Taylor and potentially Ronnie Cox as well from Berry Brothers. So hopefully he'll join us again next week. But in the meantime, thanks again for watching, guys, and good night. Cheers.
Slange.
Slange.
Cheers, guys.